Chapter 1888. The primordial centipede only stopped when it reached a trench at the bottom of the sea. Chu Fengmian released a wave of spiritual energy and isolated the surrounding seawater. Both Qi Yangshi and the princess of the sea walked to the side to meditate and rest. The cold poison in Qi Yangshi's body had already been neutralized by Chu Fengmian using the sky-devouring secret technique. Now it was time to heal his injuries. The princess of the sea began to meditate and cultivate. Chu Fengmian had previously killed a few disciples of the Sea's Word sect, so he had given the empty rings of the disciples to the princess of the sea. Many of the treasures in the empty rings were extremely useful to the martial artists and demon gods of the sea tribe bloodline. The princess of the sea was also using the power of these treasures to increase her strength. Chu Fengmian came to a huge rock and opened the boundary monarch's pouch. From it, he released Hai Shirsi, who had just been suppressed. Chu Fengmian had already planted layers of restrictions on Hai Shirsi's body. Even though his strength was not inferior to an ordinary half-step celestial realm expert, he still could not activate any of his power. Under the suppression of the restrictions, Hai Shirsi could only kneel in front of Chu Fengmian. There was no way he could resist. "Kill me if you can." Hai Shirsi raised his head and looked at Chu Fengmian with hatred in his eyes. "Kill you? I caught you because I want to ask you a question. If you're obedient, I can spare your life." Chu Fengmian looked at Hai Shirsi and said calmly, "Speak. Is there a sword principle totem in the Sea's Word sect?" "You want a sword principle totem?" Hai Shirsi's face suddenly changed when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He then laughed arrogantly. "Brat, give up. You don't have to try to get anything out of my mouth. Even if I die in your hands today, my master will avenge me. At that time, you'll have to die with me. You don't want to talk." Chu Fengmian looked at the arrogant Hai Shirsi and was not angry. Instead, he revealed a strange smile. "If you don't want to talk, I have ways to make you talk. All heaven's death. Be under my control." The moment Chu Fengmian spoke, a mass of spiritual power suddenly condensed in the palm of his hand. This mass of spiritual power turned into a pitch-black rune in the palm of his hand. The moment he saw the pitch-black rune, Hai Shirsi's expression changed abruptly, revealing a look of horror. "What do you want?" "Enter!" Boom! With a wave of his hand, the pitch-black rune entered Hai Shirsi's body and deeply engraved itself into his Tao heart. Heavenly Death Seal. With the increase of Chu Fengmian's strength, the heavenly death seal that he had planted was becoming more and more powerful. Even a half-step celestial being expert could not dispel the heavenly death seal. As the heavenly death seal entered Hai Shirsi's body, Hai Shirsi's face became extremely ferocious as he roared. "No, don't control me. I'm willing to work for you. I'm willing to tell you everything." Chu Fengmian completely ignored his pleas. He had given Hai Shirsi a chance, but he did not know how to cherish it. Now there was no second chance. Soon, Hai Shirsi's struggle gradually weakened. His expression calmed down, and he looked at Chu Fengmian with incomparable respect. "Master!" Chu Fengmian waved his hand and removed all the seals on Hai Shirsi's body. After planting the heavenly death seal, Hai Shirsi could not betray Chu Fengmian for a short period of time. "Yes, there is indeed a sword principle totem in our Sea's Word sect. This sword principle totem is the most important treasure of our Sea's Word sect. It is usually guarded by the elders. Only a small number of disciples are qualified to comprehend the sword principle totem. The sword principle totem is located in the core of the Sea's Word sect's holy land. If one is not qualified to comprehend it, no one can get close to it." Hai Shirsi reported all the information that Chu Fengmian wanted to know. "The security is tight," Chu Fengmian murmured to himself after hearing Hai Shirsi's words. Everyone knew that the sword principle totem was the most precious treasure of sword principle. However, everyone's understanding of the value of the sword principle totem was different. For most martial artists and Fey immortals, They only knew that the sword principle totem was the most precious treasure of sword principle. At most, they regarded it as a treasure similar to supreme sword chi. However, Chu Fengmian knew that the value of the sword principle totem was much higher than supreme sword chi and other treasures. The sword principle totem was deeply hidden in the sword principle totem, which recorded the sword principle origin. It could be said that the 19 sword principle totems were most likely transformed from the sword principle origin. If the Seasword sect did not guard the sword principle totem tightly, Chu Fengmian could try to snatch it directly. After all, even if there were true celestial realm experts in the Seasword sect, such experts should be cultivating the celestial great Tao and would not be involved in trivial matters. Only when Chu Fengmian snatched the sword principle totem would such figures be alarmed. Moreover, Chu Fengmian did not want to fight against the celestial realm expert. He just wanted to escape. Chu Fengmian's strength was indeed far from that of a true celestial realm expert. However, when it came to escaping, there was probably no half-step celestial realm expert who could compete with Chu Fengmian. If he was determined to escape, Chu Fengmian still had some chances. However, now that he heard Hai Shirsi's description, Chu Fengmian understood that the Seasword sect knew the value of the sword principle totem very well. Under such tight security, it was impossible for Chu Fengmian to swagger into the Seasword sect, snatch the sword principle totem, and leave. Moreover, to snatch the sword principle totem, he had to succeed in one try. If he failed in one try, it would inevitably alarm the Seasword sect. The next time Chu Fengmian wanted to make a move, the difficulty would be countless times higher. At that time, it would be as difficult as ascending to the sky. For Chu Fengmian now, unless he could sneak into the Seasword sect and see the sword principle totem, the chances of success in one try were not high. Are you qualified to comprehend the sword principle totem? Chu Fengmian was thinking about this in his mind. He looked at Hai Shirsi and suddenly asked, "Master, I have tried to comprehend the sword principle totem, but I also need to spend a lot of contribution points to exchange for the opportunity to comprehend the sword principle totem. It will take me a long time to accumulate such a large amount of contribution points." Chapter 1889. The structure of the Seasword sect was very similar to the Sacred Dragon Mystery Dimension that Chu Fengmian had gone to. There was a complete contribution point system. Only by working for the sect and earning contribution points could one enjoy the various benefits of the sect. Almost every sect in every galaxy had a similar system. Only such a system could be passed down for a long time. Furthermore, it was extremely difficult to earn contribution points from the Sea Sword sect. Hai Shirsi had already been bestowed with the surname Hai. If he wanted to exchange it for a chance to comprehend the Sword Tao Totem, he would need to accumulate contribution points for a long time. Hai Shirsi's original name was not Hai Shirsi. In the Seasword sect, the top 20 core disciples would be given the surname Hai and their ranking number. Hai Shirsi was the 14th inner disciple of the Seasword sect. Although Jianwang, whom Chu Fengmian had met, was also a core disciple of the Seasword sect, he was not in the top 20 and was not qualified to be given the surname Hai. It's good that I can meet him. As for contribution points, I just need to complete the task given by the Seasword sect. Chu Fengmian said. As long as he could get close to the sword principle totem, Chu Fengmian had the confidence to seize it. Since Hai Shirsi had the opportunity to comprehend the sword principle totem, Chu Fengmian could take advantage of the opportunity to hide in Hai Shirsi's body and sneak in. After seizing the sword principle totem, Chu Fengmian would escape from the Seasword sect. Master, the guardian of the sword principle totem, said that it would be difficult to deal with more than 2 elders of the half-step celestial realm. Hai Shirsi hurriedly reminded Chu Fengmian after hearing his words. Hai Shirsi had been planted with the All-Heaven Death Seal by Chu Fengmian, and all his thoughts were for Chu Fengmian's sake. Naturally, he would tell Chu Fengmian all the dangers. "It's okay, I'll deal with it." At this point, Chu Fengmian suddenly thought of something and continued to speak. By the way, how many celestial realm experts are there in the Seasword sect? Only those at the peak of the half-step celestial realm were a threat to Chu Fengmian. However, the biggest threat to Chu Fengmian was of course the celestial realm expert. It was precisely because Chu Fengmian was wary of the sky realm experts in the Sea Sword sect that he didn't dare to barge in. He could only use his wits. There's only one. He's an extremely ancient ancestor of our Sea Sword sect, known as the Emperor of the Waterfront Sword Sea. He's also one of the strongest ancestors in the vast Sea Star region. He stepped into the celestial realm tens of thousands of years ago and became an immortal. Hai Shirsi's voice was trembling when he mentioned the Waterfront Sword Sea Emperor. It was obvious that he was extremely afraid of the Waterfront Sword Sea Emperor. If there's only one, then that's fine. The Emperor of the overlooking Sword Ocean seems to be someone who entered immortality through the sword, a peerless sword immortal. According to the ancient records, once one stepped into the celestial realm, one would be qualified to be called an immortal. One who became an immortal through the sword would be a sword immortal. However, some ancient records stated that only celestial marquises in the profound heaven realm were qualified to be called celestials. Celestials, on the other hand, were only considered immortals, not true immortals. Of course, in this era, celestial realm experts were extremely rare, so no one paid attention to them. The Emperor of the Waterfront Sword Sea is usually in seclusion, but once Master tries to seize the sword totem, the Emperor of the Waterfront Sword Sea Emperor will definitely be awakened. Hai Shirsi said. Chu Fengmian nodded. The Emperor of the Waterfront Sword Sea Emperor was not someone who had just stepped into the celestial realm like the Mad Dragon Emperor, but someone who had stepped into the celestial realm for tens of thousands of years. He was probably much stronger than the Mad Dragon Emperor, so Chu Fengmian had to plan carefully. Let's find a plan to sneak into the Sea Sword sect first. Chu Fengmian also wanted to understand the Sea Sword sect before making his move. He put Hai Shirsi into the Realm King's pouch, then looked at the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi. Qi Yangshi's aura had recovered a lot. After all, he was seriously injured because of the cold poison in his body. Now that the cold poison had been neutralized by Chu Fengmian, the remaining injuries were nothing to a nine-tribulation Emperor Gu like Qi Yangshi. He would recover quickly. Thank you for saving my life, young Master Chu. Qi Yangshi saw Chu Fengmian looking at him, so he quickly got up and bowed respectfully. This time, it was all thanks to Chu Fengmian. Otherwise, he would have died from the cold poison sooner or later. The cold poison in his body had already spread all over his internal organs, and he was almost incurable. Only Chu Fengmian's sky-devouring secret skill could save his life. It's nothing, Chu Fengmian said, then looked at the Princess of the Sea. He carefully sized her up and said curiously, "The Black Whale bloodline? I didn't see it." Chu Fengmian only knew from Hai Shirsi that the Princess of the Sea had the Black Whale bloodline. The Black Whale was one of the innate divine beasts, the ancestor of the Sea Tribe. Although many said that the ancestor of the Sea Tribe was the Sea God, the Sea God was only the founder of the Sea Tribe. The Black Whale was the one who created the thousands of Sea Tribe. The ancestor of all the Sea Tribe in the world was the Black Whale. The Black Whale bloodline was also a branch of the innate divine beast bloodline. It was not inferior to Tianlong's bloodline or the sky-devouring beast bloodline. Chu Fengmian had known the Princess of the Sea for a long time, but he had never noticed the Black Whale bloodline in the Princess of the Sea. Originally, Chu Fengmian thought that the Princess of the Sea's bloodline was just an ordinary Sea Tribe bloodline. However, after hearing Hai Shirsi's words, Chu Fengmian examined it carefully and realized that there was a terrifying power hidden in the Princess of the Sea's bloodline. It was the power of the Black Whale. However, Chu Fengmian could see that the Black Whale bloodline in the Princess of the Sea had not awakened. When Chu Fengmian was in the ancient monster continent, He had killed the young master of the Hua family. He also possessed the Ting snake bloodline, but it had not awakened. If the innate divine beast bloodline had not awakened, it would look like an ordinary bloodline. It could only be detected through special means. Although the black whale bloodline in the Princess of the Sea had not awakened, the news had spread. Therefore, she was hunted down and left the vast sea star zone. Even after she left the vast sea star zone for 100 years, the hunt had never stopped. Hearing Chu Fengmian mention the black whale bloodline, Qi Yang Master's expression changed drastically. He looked at Chu Fengmian cautiously. He knew that Chu Fengmian was close to the Princess of the Sea. However, in front of the innate divine beast bloodline, even brothers or father and son could turn against each other, let alone friends. Chapter 1890. Uncle Qi, you don't have to worry. My lord won't harm me. The Princess of the Sea looked at the nervous Master Qi Yang and chuckled. Then, she looked at Chu Fengmian. That's right. I have the bloodline of the black whale. Our Lan family once inherited the bloodline of the black whale. Is Lan Ming also from the Lan family? Chu Fengmian asked. Judging from the name, this Lan Ming should be related to the Lan family. That's right. That traitor. It was because of him that the Lan family was destroyed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have ended up like this. The Princess of the Sea was furious when she mentioned Lan Ming. She only calmed down after a while and continued to speak. Lan Ming was once an extremely talented genius of the Lan family. In my generation, the Lan family has declined. However, we are still one of the major forces in the Songhai Star Zone. Although the Sea Sword Sect, Sea Sacrifice Sect, and the others also wanted the bloodline of the black whale, they were afraid of the Lan family's strength and didn't dare to make a move. Lan Ming awakened the bloodline of the black whale long ago. However, he wasn't satisfied with his own bloodline. Instead, he turned his attention to the other members of the Lan family. In the end, the ancestor of our Lan family died under Lan Ming's sneak attack. After that, Lan Ming joined the Sea Sacrifice Sect. Then, he didn't stop thinking of seizing the bloodline of the other disciples of the Lan family. He chased after the disciples of the Lan family. Our branch had no choice but to leave the Songhai Star Zone and go to the Daluo Star Zone. However, I am the only one from the Lan family who truly possesses the bloodline of the black whale. Lan Ming didn't stop chasing after the Lan family. We, who were once subordinates of the Lan family, were also chased by Lan Ming. Later, the Sea Sword Sect, North Sea Palace, and other forces also joined in the chase. They also wanted the bloodline of the black whale. Master Qi Yang said viciously. He didn't know how many people he had been chased after in the past few decades. Those who chased after him didn't want to kill him. They wanted to use him to force the Lan family out. That was why they had been watching him and using cold poison to wear down his vitality. If they wanted to kill him, with the strength of the Sea Sword Sect, killing a Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu like him would not require any tricks at all. A man's wealth is his own ruin. The bloodline of the black whale will naturally attract attention. I'm afraid you'll encounter a lot of trouble when you return to the Songhai Star Zone this time. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Princess of the Sea and roughly understood what had happened in the past. In the ancient times, martial artists and demon immortals who possessed the innate divine beast bloodline were not as rare as they were now. However, without exception, every martial artist and fey god who possessed an innate divine beast bloodline had been hunted down countless times. The innate divine beast bloodline was extremely tempting to any martial artist or demon god. If they were strong enough, they would still be able to protect themselves. However, if they were not strong enough, they would die under the pursuit. Once the Lan family declined, this situation was also destined to happen. Fortunately, your profound whale bloodline has not awakened yet. It is not that troublesome to hide it. Let me help you this time. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Princess of the Sea. Suddenly, He gathered a surge of spiritual energy and injected it into the Princess of the Sea's body. As this surge of spiritual energy was injected into the Princess of the Sea tribe's aura completely disappeared. There was only a faint dragon's might left. At the same time, another surge of spiritual energy was injected into Jianwang, who was beside her. His spiritual energy was transformed into a type of dragon power. He looked no different from a real demon immortal from the dragon tribe. He did not have the aura of the sea tribe at all. I will use the dragon tribe's bloodline to conceal your aura. As long as you don't use your full strength, no one will be able to detect your true identity. Thank you, young master. The Princess of the Sea and Jianwang hurriedly thanked Chu Fengmian when they felt the aura on their bodies. If their auras could not be detected, then the two of them would not be hunted down even in the Songhai star system. The Songhai star zone was close to the Azure Dragon star zone. There were many demon immortals from the dragon tribe in the Songhai star zone. Even the people from the Sea's Word sect and the Sea Sacrifice sect would not be able to see through their disguise when they disguised themselves as members of the dragon tribe. With Chu Fengmian's aura concealment, no one would be able to detect the mystery unless they were a true Sky Realm expert. Now that you have concealed your aura, we can go to other cities. The Princess of the Sea suddenly muttered to herself. She turned around and said to Chu Fengmian, Young master, I plan to go to other cities to do some things. I want to find the people from the Lan family. Great. I also plan to go to the Sea's Word sect. Chu Fengmian replied. I promised you that I would kill Lan Ming. But before that, I still have some things to do. After witnessing the strength of the Sea Sacrifice sect, Chu Fengmian also understood that it would not be easy to kill Lan Ming. The strength of the Sea's Word sect was already troublesome for Chu Fengmian, let alone the Sea Sacrifice sect, which was much stronger than the Sea's Word sect. If Chu Fengmian killed Lan Ming, the Sea Sacrifice sect would be enraged. Chu Fengmian would probably have to leave the Songhai Star Zone as soon as possible. Therefore, Chu Fengmian's plan was to first obtain the Sword Principal Totem and then kill Lan Ming. Moreover, Lan Ming was also a genius of the Lan family. He had the Xianjing bloodline. His strength was probably much stronger than what Chu Fengmian had imagined. If Chu Fengmian obtained the Sword Principal Totem and comprehended it, Chu Fengmian's strength would improve. He would have more confidence in killing Lan Ming then. Great. This is a jade talisman unique to the Lan family. As long as you are in the Songhai Star Zone, you can infuse spiritual energy into the jade talisman to find my location. When you are done with your business, you can come find us. The Princess of the Sea moved her palm. A jade talisman appeared in her palm and she handed it to Chu Fengmian. Great. If there is danger, you can also inform me. Chu Fengmian's heart moved. Suddenly, a gust of spiritual energy condensed in his palm. It turned into several pills, and he handed them to the Princess of the Sea. These pills are formed from my energy. If someone consumes them, they will be able to hide their aura, just like you. Since the Princess of the Sea left to find the Lan family, the other members of the Lan family were probably under the surveillance of various forces, just like Mr. These pills could hide their aura and help them a lot. Thank you, Mr. The Princess of the Sea revealed a look of joy on her face, and she accepted the pills without any hesitation. Then let's part ways here. Chu Fengmian's figure flashed and disappeared into the trench. Chapter 1891. After separating, Chu Fengmian left the trench and suddenly changed into Hai Shirsi's appearance. He went to a city that also belonged to the Sea Sword sect, Southtown Sword City. He had already left the Silent Sea and was heading to one of the largest sea regions in the Songhai Star Zone, Sword Sea. The Sword Sea was the sea region where the Sea Sword sect was located. Chu Fengmian rode the immemorial centipede and spent 7 days to reach the Sword Sea. The Songhai Star Zone was dozens or even hundreds of times larger than an ordinary star zone. Moreover, it was a huge ocean, a paradise for the sea tribe. Along the way, there were many ancient sea beasts and exotic beasts that lived in the vast sea star field. This time, he had to use Hai Shirsi's identity to sneak into the sea sword sect. Therefore, Chu Fengmian changed into Hai Shirsi's appearance. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, no one would be able to see through his disguise unless it was a true Celestial Realm expert. Although there were true Celestial Realm experts in the Sea Sword sect, such experts usually wouldn't interfere in the affairs of the Sea Sword sect. According to Hai Shirsi, the Emperor of the Overlooking Sword Sea rarely showed himself in hundreds of years. He spent most of his time in seclusion. As long as he didn't encounter the Emperor of the Overlooking Sword Sea, it wouldn't be a problem for Chu Fengmian to sneak into the Sea Sword sect. As for the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi, the two of them were originally Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations realm. Qi Yangshi had recovered from his injuries and was a pinnacle Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. Such people couldn't be considered an overlord in the Songhai Star Zone, but they were still experts. As long as they didn't provoke the Sea Sword sect or the Sea Sacrifice sect, they wouldn't be in any danger. After all, their auras were concealed by Chu Fengmian. They looked like ordinary demon immortals of the Dragon Clan. Even if the Sea Sword sect and the Sea Sacrifice sect investigated, they wouldn't be able to trace it back to the Dragon Clan. Chu Fengmian couldn't be bothered with the Lan family. His current goal was to seize the Sword Dao Totem and find a chance to kill Lan Ming. As for the rest, he could only see if there was a chance to find immortal stones and prepare to enter the half-step celestial realm. Master, Zhennan City is up ahead. Following Hai Shirsi's guidance, a gigantic city appeared before Chu Fengmian's eyes. Looking from afar, Zhennan City was much larger than the tranquil sea city that Chu Fengmian had visited before. A huge sword formation shrouded the entire Zhennan City. Even a half-step celestial realm expert would be killed instantly if he tried to resist the sword formation. Chu Fengmian had learned from Hai Shirsi that Zhennan Sea City was one of the entrances to the Sea Sword sect. This was similar to the relationship between the Sword Dao City and the Sword Origin world. However, the Sea Sword sect was incomparably huge, and there was more than one such gate. This Zhennan City was located at the southern end of the Sea of Swords. Further south was another sea, the Eternal Sacrificial Sea. The Eternal Sacrificial Sea was where the Sea Sacrificial sect was located. It was also the center of the Songhai Starfield. Chu Fengmian retracted his aura and turned into Hai Shirsi. It looked like Hai Shirsi was alone as he entered Zhennan City. 14th Young Master. The disciples guarding the Zhennan City saluted Chu Fengmian respectfully when they saw him. These disciples of the Sea Sword sect in Zhennan Sea City were all extraordinary existences that couldn't be provoked. However, they were all respectful in front of Chu Fengmian. Hai Shirsi was a core disciple of the Sea Sword sect and was given the name Hai. According to the ancient rules of the Sea Sword sect, core disciples who were given the name Hai would be qualified to compete for the position of the sect master in the future. Of course, under normal circumstances, Hai Shirsi wouldn't be able to do so. However, in the history of the Sea Sword sect, there might have been some low-ranking core disciples who had obtained amazing encounters and competed for the position of sect master. To the other disciples of the Sea Sword sect, Hai Shirsi was almost like a young sect master. Naturally, no one dared to disrespect him. Many disciples even came over and complimented him. 14th Young Master, I heard that you went out this time because you found the remnants of the Lan family? I wonder if you obtained the Black Whale bloodline? A disciple of the Sea Sword sect came to Chu Fengmian's side and complimented him. Once the 14th Young Master obtains the Black Whale bloodline, how can the other Young Masters be your opponent? When the time comes, the 14th Young Master will defeat all the other Young Masters and seize the position of Sect Master. Get lost. Chu Fengmian snorted and pretended to be angry as he scolded. Chu Fengmian's tone and appearance were exactly the same as the real Hai Shirsi. Chu Fengmian used the heavenly death seal to control Hai Shirsi. Hai Shirsi's memories fell into Chu Fengmian's mind. Moreover, the real Hai Shirsi was still locked in the Realm King's pouch by Chu Fengmian. Just in case, Chu Fengmian could summon him at any time. The current Chu Fengmian was almost the same as the real Hai Shirsi. Only those who were extremely close to Hai Shirsi could tell the difference. However, Hai Shirsi was arrogant by nature. There were almost no disciples close to him in the Sea Sword sect. This saved Chu Fengmian a lot of trouble and made Chu Fengmian less apprehensive. Yes. Hearing Chu Fengmian's scolding, the other disciples of the Sea Sword sect hurriedly retreated. With their status, they didn't dare to provoke this Hai Shirsi. Seeing Chu Fengmian's back as he left, the disciples of the Sea Sword sect started scolding. Damn it, this Hai Shirsi is too arrogant. He's only below average among the core disciples with the surname Hai. I can't believe he's this arrogant. Whatever, lower your voice. Don't let him hear you. Even if this Hai Shirsi can't become the sect master, he'll still be an elder in the future. We can't afford to offend him. Seems like the 14th young master suffered a big loss this time. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so angry. Didn't they say that the Lan family had fallen? How could they let Hai Shirsi suffer a big loss? Maybe it's a trick left behind by the Lan family. After all, the Lan family has the bloodline of the Jianwang and was once powerful. It's not surprising that they left behind some trick. Since the 14th young master didn't succeed, then the people of the Lan family must still be in the Songhai Star Zone. If we can find them, then it'll be a great opportunity. The bloodline of the Jianwang is an innate divine beast bloodline. If I can get it, then I'll have a chance to become the sect master in the future. Stop dreaming. The other young masters have all left the sacred ground to find the remnants of the Lan family. We'd better rope in the others. Look, the 13th young master is back. Another figure landed in Jiannan Sea City. The disciples of the Sea Sword sect stopped their discussion and hurried over to welcome him. Chapter 1892. Looks like I haven't been discovered yet. Chu Fengmian walked on the streets of Zhenanhai City, but he left a trace of his consciousness to observe the disciples of the Sea Sword sect. Chu Fengmian was a little worried that the Hai Shirsi he disguised himself as would be different from the real Hai Shirsi and be seen through. However, it seemed that these ordinary disciples of the Sea Sword sect couldn't see the difference, which made Chu Fengmian feel relieved. 13th young master, could it be that Hai Shir-san also came to Zhenanhai City? Chu Fengmian heard the conversation of the disciples of the Sea Sword sect. These disciples of the Sea Sword sect called Hai Shirsi the 14th young master, so the 13th young master they were talking about should be Hai Shir-san. In Hai Shirsi's memory, he had always been enemies with Hai Shir-san in the Sea Sword sect. They had fought many times, but Hai Shirsi was always slightly inferior. Compared to the ordinary disciples of the Sea Sword sect, Hai Shir-san was much more familiar with Hai Shirsi. Chu Fengmian had to be careful when facing Hai Shir-san. Chu Fengmian was reminded and strolled around Zhenanhai City. Zhenanhai City was far more prosperous than the Lonely Sea City. It could be said to be one of the largest cities in the entire vast sea star field. As the gateway to the Sea Sword sect, a large number of martial artists and Yao gods who wanted to join the Sea Sword sect gathered in Zhenanhai City. Sects like the Sea Sword sect and the Sea Sacrifice sect would open their sects to recruit disciples every once in a while. That was when the city was truly prosperous. There was still some time before the opening of the sect, but many martial artists and Yao gods from other seas had already arrived in Zhenanhai City. The vast sea star field was so vast that even Chu Fengmian took 7 days to travel from the Lonely Sea to Zhenanhai City on the ancient centipede. Among the countless seas in the vast sea star field, there were many that were much farther away than the Lonely Sea. Therefore, many martial artists and Yao gods had come from far away to settle down in Zhenanhai City. They were waiting for the day when the Sea Sword sect opened its doors to recruit disciples, so that they could take the assessment and join the Sea Sword sect. The prosperity of the vast sea star field is indeed much greater than that of the overarching heaven star field. As Chu Fengmian strolled along the streets, he could not help but think to himself as he watched the martial artists and demon immortals coming and going. Jianwang City was the biggest city in the Shanghai Star Zone. There were hundreds of millions of martial artists and Yao immortals gathered there. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw many Emperor Realm and Emperor Gu Realm masters. Chu Fengmian had even seen several peak figures like Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations. However, Chu Fengmian had yet to see experts who were half a step into the celestial being realm. Even in forces like the Sea Sacrifice sect and the Sea Sword sect, experts who were half a step away from the celestial being realm were respected and could be regarded as elders. Of course, they rarely appeared in public. The vast sea star system is indeed worthy of being a second-grade continent. It's indeed terrifying. I'm afraid that with the strength of the Sea Sword sect alone, it would be easy for them to sweep through the Daluo star system. Chu Fengmian gradually understood the terror of the Sea Sword sect from Hai Shirsi's memory. In the Sea Sword sect, there were 50 to 60 experts who were half a step away from the celestial being realm, far more than the Blue Dragon sect that ruled the Blue Dragon continent. This was only the number that Hai Shirsi knew. Although Hai Shirsi was a core disciple, he was not considered a senior member of the Sea Sword sect. As far as he knew, there were still many old antiques in the Sea Sword sect who were cultivating in seclusion. These old antiques did not care about worldly affairs. They only wanted to pass the celestial tribulation and become immortals, stepping into the celestial being realm. With such strength, the Sea Sword sect was only one of the forces in the vast sea star zone. It was not even the strongest force. The strength of the Sea Sacrifice sect was even more terrifying than the Sea Sacrifice sect. It was rumored that the strength of the sacred region was hundreds or thousands of times greater than that of a second-grade continent. The 9 regions were now being targeted by Jihua Heaven. Although under the threat of the 9 regions of heaven, the 3 sacred regions only dared to test the waters. However, the future was uncertain. If Chu Fengmian wanted to protect the Sword Wei sect, he could only become stronger. Senior, please come to our Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild to have a look. The Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild has everything. Just as Chu Fengmian was casually walking on the streets of the South Sea City, he suddenly passed by the door of a merchant guild. Several disciples of the merchant guild could tell that Chu Fengmian had an extraordinary origin at a glance and came to rope him in. Chu Fengmian only came back to his senses when he heard this voice. He found that he was standing in front of a merchant guild. These disciples surrounded Chu Fengmian and tried to rope him in. Although these disciples of the merchant guild were trying to rope him in, their tone was extremely respectful, so he did not feel irritated. This is the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild? Chu Fengmian raised his head and glanced at the name on the plaque of the merchant guild. Based on Hai Shirsi's memory, the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild was considered one of the largest merchant guilds in the vast sea star zone. It did not belong to any of the 3 major forces, but was an independent force. Although it was not huge, there were several experts hiding behind it, so it could often get good treasures. It was said that as long as one was willing to pay a high enough price, one could buy anything in the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. Of course, there was some exaggeration in this sentence, but even in Hai Shirsi's memory, the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild was extremely mysterious. This Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild should have some background. Let's go in and have a look. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment, then stepped into the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. From the group of disciples of the Merchant Guild, a young female disciple walked out and followed Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian walked around the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild, looking at the many spiritual weapons and sacred medicines on the counter expressionlessly. These spiritual weapons and sacred medicines were of no use to Chu Fengmian. However, Many of these sacred medicines had disappeared from the 9 domains for tens of thousands of years, yet they still existed in the Songhai star system. This made Chu Fengmian curious. These things are not worthy of Senior's attention? The female disciple beside Chu Fengmian had been observing the changes in Chu Fengmian's expression. After a while, she asked in a low voice. That's right. The Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild is known to have everything, but I think it's just an undeserved reputation. Chu Fengmian sneered, showing Hai Shirsi's arrogance incisively and vividly. Senior must be joking. These things are only used to brush off outsiders. Senior, please go to the second floor. Chapter 1893. As the female disciple spoke, she led Chu Fengmian to the second floor of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. Although it was called the second floor, it was just a name. The interior of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce was much larger than what it looked like from the outside. It was a space of its own. For a half-step celestial realm expert, opening up a space was not a difficult task. The two of them were walking on a path in this space. Around the space path, there were rooms opened up by the power of space. These rooms were all sealed by layers of restrictions. Even a half-step celestial realm expert's spiritual consciousness could not detect what was happening inside from the outside. However, for Chu Fengmian, the restrictions were not worth mentioning at all. Chu Fengmian quietly released his soul sense, and the situation in the surrounding rooms was seen by Chu Fengmian. In each room, there were some experts from the Songhai Star region who were trading with the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. Spiritual stones, spiritual weapons, sacred elixirs, mysterious treasures, and even some killing and capturing people alive were all available. In the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce, as long as one was willing to spend enough money, one could hire experts to kill or capture people alive as slaves. Senior, you have an extraordinary appearance and a shocking sword intent. May I know which expert from the Sea Sword sect you are? The female disciple was leading Chu Fengmian when she suddenly turned her head and asked Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's body was constantly emitting a faint sword intent. The Sea Sword sect respected the sword, and Hai Shirsi's character was extremely arrogant. Chu Fengmian also emitted a sharp sword intent and looked no different from the real Hai Shirsi. If Hai Shirsi was a disciple of the North Sea Palace, it would be difficult for Chu Fengmian to disguise himself. After all, Chu Fengmian did not know the martial techniques of the sea race. However, in terms of sword principles, Chu Fengmian's sword principles were countless times stronger than Hai Shirsi's. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had obtained Hai Shirsi's memories and had completely comprehended the sword principles of the Sea Sword sect. Chu Fengmian's aptitude was enough to comprehend the first sword principle of the number 1 Sword Emperor. In a few breaths' time, Chu Fengmian had completely comprehended the sword principles of the Sea Sword sect. It could be said that the sword principles of the Sea Sword sect that Chu Fengmian displayed were even more profound than the real Hai Shirsi's. In terms of sword arts, Chu Fengmian's disguise was flawless. You don't deserve to know my identity. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted, and a sword intent pressed down. This female disciple was only a life and death realm martial artist. She could not bear with it. It's my daughter's fault. Senior, please don't take offense. This female disciple hurriedly said. She originally wanted to ask about Chu Fengmian's identity and think of a way to obtain some benefits. But now, he had suffered a great loss. Seeing that you are a disciple of the Lunar Ocean Commerce, I won't kill you this time. But if there is a next time, no one will be able to save you. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted and dispersed his sword intent. After the sword intent dispersed, the female disciple finally let out a sigh of relief. However, her gaze towards Chu Fengmian was now filled with incomparable fear. She did not dare to continue probing Chu Fengmian's identity. The female disciple obediently led the way. After an unknown distance, they finally arrived at a room. In this room, an old man was already waiting. The female disciple brought Chu Fengmian here and hurriedly left. This old man is the manager of the Sea Moon Merchant Association. My surname is Wu. I wonder, what do you want to buy this time? When Steward Wu saw Chu Fengmian sit down, he sized up Chu Fengmian and took the initiative to speak. Manager? My business is not something a small manager can handle. Hand over the manager of your Sea Moon Merchant Association. I don't have time to waste with you. Chu Fengmian glanced at Manager Wu and sneered. Manager Wu was speechless when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. The Sea Moon Merchant Association was considered one of the largest merchant associations in Jianwang City. Usually, the martial artists and demon immortals who came to the Sea Moon Merchant Association to do business were also very polite to them. He had never seen someone as arrogant as Chu Fengmian, especially when he was one of the managers of the Sea Moon Merchant Association. He had an extraordinary status in the Sea Moon Merchant Association. When had he ever been ignored like this? Our manager is not in the Sea Moon Merchant Association. Shopkeeper Wu glanced at Chu Fengmian and said impatiently. His tone became a bit colder. What business do you want? Just tell me. If you don't want to do business, please leave. What? A small manager of the Sea Moon Merchant Association doesn't know the rules? How dare you be presumptuous in front of this young master? Chu Fengmian was not angry when he heard Manager Wu's words. Instead, he laughed. Sir, the Sea Moon Merchant Association is not a place where you can be presumptuous. Manager Wu's tone hardened as he sneered at Chu Fengmian. Is that so? A small manager of the Sea Moon Merchant Association dares to treat me like this? Seems like you are courting death. Chu Fengmian slammed the table. Suddenly, a shocking sword intent was aimed at Manager Wu and suppressed him. This was a sharp sword intent. Of course, this sentence was somewhat exaggerated. However, even in Hai Shirsi's memory, the Sea Moon Merchant Association was very mysterious. This Sea Moon Merchant Association should have some background. Let's go in and have a look. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and stepped into the Sea Moon Merchant Association. A young female disciple walked out from the group of Chamber of Commerce disciples and followed Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian and Chu Fengmian walked around the Sea Moon Merchant Association. They looked at the many spiritual weapons and sacred medicines on the counter expressionlessly. These spiritual weapons and sacred medicines were of no use to Chu Fengmian. However, many of these sacred medicines had disappeared from the 9 domains for tens of thousands of years, yet they still existed in the Songhai star system. This made Chu Fengmian curious. These things are not worthy of seniors' attention? The female disciple beside Chu Fengmian had been observing the changes in Chu Fengmian's expression. After a while, she asked in a low voice. That's right. The Sea Moon Merchant Association is known to have everything. I think it's an undeserved reputation. Chu Fengmian sneered, showing Hai Shirsi's arrogance incisively and vividly. Senior, you must be joking. These things are only used to brush off outsiders. Senior, please go to the second floor. Chapter 1894. Seeing this figure, Chu Fengmian knew that it was an expert of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. Naturally, Chu Fengmian couldn't hide from the experts of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. They wouldn't sit idly by and watch Steward Wu be killed by Chu Fengmian. At this critical moment, someone finally made a move. This figure was a half-step celestial being realm expert of the sea species. He looked like a middle-aged man with a noble aura. Obviously, he was a big shot in the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. Sir Consecrator. When Steward Wu saw the middle-aged man, he bowed respectfully and said. The middle-aged man ignored Steward Wu and said to Chu Fengmian directly. 14th young master, please calm down. A servant doesn't know the rules. Please don't bother with him. You are? Chu Fengmian didn't find it strange that the middle-aged man recognized Chu Fengmian's identity. Hai Shirsi was one of the famous geniuses in the entire Sword Sea. A core disciple with the surname Hai would be respectfully addressed as young master wherever he went. The middle-aged man turned his head to look at Steward Wu and shouted coldly. Steward Wu, this is the 14th young master of the Sea Sword sect. You offended him. Why don't you apologize? 14th young master. Steward Wu's face changed. The core disciples of the Sea Sword sect had a great chance of reaching the half-step celestial being realm in the future. Although he was the Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations, his status was completely different from Chu Fengmian's. He thought that Chu Fengmian was just an ordinary Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations. He didn't expect him to have such an identity. Forget it. I don't want to bother with an old man. Tell him to get lost. Chu Fengmian waved his hand. Thank you, 14th young master. Hearing this, Manager Wu finally heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly left the room. Only Chu Fengmian and the middle-aged man were left in the room. I'm one of the consecrators of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. My surname is Chen. I heard that the 14th young master wants to meet our manager? The middle-aged man looked at Chu Fengmian and said. He didn't care about Chu Fengmian's disturbance just now. With High Shirsi's status, although the Lunar Ocean Commerce wasn't afraid of him, they wouldn't offend him for no reason. Even if Chu Fengmian wanted to kill Steward Wu, there wouldn't be many people who would stop him. However, Chu Fengmian came to the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild to make a deal with them. He also didn't have any intention of falling out with the Lunar Ocean Commerce firm. Since Chu Fengmian didn't mention it, the middle-aged man naturally wouldn't mention it either. So it's the Oblivion Sea King. Chu Fengmian's mind spun. Hearing the surname Chen, Chu Fengmian knew the identity of this middle-aged man from High Shirsi's memories. The Oblivion Sea King was once an overlord of a region. Later on, he joined the Lunar Ocean Trade Union and became one of their consecrators. I came to the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce to make a deal with the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. However, this deal is very big, so I'm going to meet with the manager of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. Chu Fengmian said calmly. A deal? The manager of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce isn't here today. If we're talking about business, I have full authority to make decisions for the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. 14th young master, please speak your mind. The Oblivion Sea King said with a smile. This time I went out and found a spiritual stone vein. I want to use the spiritual stones to buy something. Chu Fengmian said. Spiritual stone vein? Good stuff. 14th young master, you've gained a lot from this trip. The Oblivion Sea King's eyes lit up. A spiritual stone vein contained wealth of billions of spiritual stones. If it was some ancient spiritual stone vein, it would contain even more spiritual stones. However, the value of a spirit stone vein was still related to the quality of the spirit stone vein. If the spirit stone vein was below the top-grade spirit stone vein, the value would not be high. If the spirit stone vein was above the top-grade spirit stone vein, then the wealth contained would definitely be an astronomical figure. This was a big deal. The Oblivion Sea King's expression changed and said with great importance, 14th young master, what do you want to buy? Immortal stones. Chu Fengmian's answer was also very straightforward. For Chu Fengmian, what he needed most now was immortal stones. Of course, for Chu Fengmian, the sword totem's value could be said to be higher than immortal stones. It was also more useful to Chu Fengmian. However, the sword totem was something that could only be encountered and not sought. It was very difficult to obtain information about the sword totem. If he could buy a large amount of immortal stones, it could also help Chu Fengmian step into the half-step celestial realm. Once he stepped into the half-step celestial realm, Chu Fengmian's strength would undergo earth-shaking changes. Immortal stones? The Oblivion Sea King was not surprised when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. With the identity of 14th young master, the things he needed were not ordinary. Immortal stones, whether it was for the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu to break into the half-step celestial realm or for the future half-step celestial realm to officially break into the celestial realm. Immortal stones were even used when refining spiritual weapons and divine elixirs. It could be said that they were one of the most useful treasures for half-step celestial realm experts. The Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild did deals with half-step celestial realm experts on a daily basis. They had a stock of immortal stones. "How many do you want, 14th young master?" the Oblivion Sea King asked. "A lot, preferably a few hundred. It would be better if you have 1,000. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and said casually. His tone was incomparably generous. "A few hundred? 1,000? The Oblivion Sea King was shocked when he heard this. A few drops of sweat appeared on his forehead. These were immortal stones. If one immortal stone was exchanged for spirit stones, it would be worth tens of millions. 4 half-step celestial realm experts, even their entire wealth could not afford many immortal stones. Usually, buying dozens of immortal stones in one go was considered a big deal. But now, Chu Fengmian wanted to buy hundreds or even thousands of immortal stones in one go. 14th young master, the value of these immortal stones. The Oblivion Sea King glanced at Chu Fengmian and did not continue his words. But the meaning of his words was incomparably clear. Immortal stones were so expensive that even 14th young master might not be able to afford them. At least a few hundred or even thousands of immortal stones. Even now, Chu Fengmian said that he had obtained a spirit stone vein. The wealth of a spirit stone vein was far from enough to exchange for a few hundred immortal stones. Is that so? Are you worried that I can't afford it? Chu Fengmian was not angry. Instead, he smiled and flipped his palm. Suddenly, a spirit stone the size of a thumb appeared in his palm. Chapter 1895. This is? A divine-grade spirit stone? The Oblivion Sea King was shocked when he saw the spirit stone in Chu Fengmian's hand. 14th young master obtained a divine-grade spirit stone vein? Rumor has it that a divine-grade spirit stone vein hasn't appeared in the vast sea starfield for hundreds of years. 14th young master actually obtained an entire divine-grade spirit stone vein? A divine-grade spirit stone was naturally not worth the Oblivion Sea King's shock. However, Chu Fengmian had just said that he had obtained an entire spirit stone vein. Of course, not all divine-grade spirit stone veins were divine-grade spirit stone veins. However, even if there were thousands of divine-grade spirit stones, the value would still be astronomical. Even the entire Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild might not be able to take out thousands of divine-grade spirit stones. Although divine-grade spirit stones were not as valuable as immortal stones, many half-step celestial realm experts needed them. They were priceless items. Now that Chu Fengmian had obtained a divine-grade spirit stone vein, his wealth was definitely far beyond the Oblivion Sea King's imagination. Not bad. Although I didn't kill the remaining members of the Lan family and obtain the Black Whale bloodline, I was lucky enough to find a divine-grade spirit stone vein. Chu Fengmian sneered with a hint of complacency. Let's trade it with divine-grade spirit stones. I'll take all the immortal stones your Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild has. Chu Fengmian said as he waved his hand. A large mass of divine-grade spirit stones flew out. There were at least 4,000 to 5,000 divine-grade spirit stones in this mass of spirit stones. This was also a display of Chu Fengmian's wealth. Of course, the so-called divine-grade spirit stone vein was made up by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had a divine vein and could condense an endless amount of divine-grade spirit stones. It could be said that he was much wealthier than a divine-grade spirit stone vein. Chu Fengmian already had about 500 immortal stones in his hand. As long as he could obtain another 500 immortal stones, he could find an opportunity to break through the bottleneck of the half-step celestial realm. However, it was best to prepare more immortal stones just in case. The price of failing to break through was not something Chu Fengmian could bear. Chu Fengmian would only choose to break through to the next realm when he was fully prepared. To Chu Fengmian, the more immortal stones the better. The more, the better. Furthermore, when Chu Fengmian reached the half-step celestial realm in the future, he would need immortal stones to undergo the celestial tribulation. This time, Chu Fengmian wanted to buy as many immortal stones as he could from Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. So many divine-grade spirit stones? Oblivion Sea King was shocked when he saw Chu Fengmian casually take out 4,000 to 5,000 divine-grade spirit stones. He was an overlord in the Shanghai Starfield, but this was the first time he had seen so many divine-grade spirit stones. Moreover, seeing how Chu Fengmian could casually take it out, Chu Fengmian's true wealth was much greater than this. This Hai Shirsi is really lucky. With so many divine-grade spirit stones, this is definitely an ancient spirit stone mine. It might even be from the Middle or Ancient era. The Oblivion Sea King was also a little jealous, but he did not dare to snatch it. If it were someone else, the Oblivion Sea King would have thought of snatching it. However, Hai Shirsi was a core disciple of Ocean's Word sect after all and was given the surname Hai. He would have a chance to compete for the position of Ocean's Word sect master in the future. He was just a consecrator of Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. If he dared to snatch it, he would be annihilated by Ocean's Word sect the next day. According to the price, 100 divine-grade spirit stones for 1 immortal stone. The Oblivion Sea King collected his thoughts and looked at Chu Fengmian. The price is fair. Chu Fengmian recalled Hai Shirsi's memories and found the price to be fair. How many immortal stones does your Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild have? I want all of them, Chu Fengmian said casually. A few hundred immortal stones were equivalent to tens of thousands of divine-grade spirit stones. Although Chu Fengmian's refining speed was not as fast as refining King and Emperor-grade spirit stones, he could easily refine tens of thousands of them. However, after such a long time, Chu Fengmian had refined hundreds of thousands of divine-grade spirit stones, which was enough to buy immortal stones. Moreover, if Chu Fengmian was willing to refine them, he could refine tens of thousands of divine-grade spirit stones in a few days. Of course, Chu Fengmian didn't feel the pinch when spending divine-grade spirit stones. Well, our Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild can only take out about 200 immortal stones. The Oblivion Sea King pondered for a moment after hearing Chu Fengmian's big demand. So little? Chu Fengmian was disappointed when he heard the number. After all, Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild was one of the largest merchant guilds in South Sea City. He had thought that Chu Fengmian could buy 400 to 500 immortal stones from them. But now there were only about 200 immortal stones, which was much less than Chu Fengmian's estimate. 14th Young Master, you may not know this, but in a month's time, it will be the Ocean Emperor's 50,000th birthday celebration. The immortal stones in South Sea City have long been sold out, the Oblivion Sea King said helplessly. Our Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild only has some stock because we received a batch of immortal stones a few days ago. Other merchant guilds might not even be able to take out dozens of immortal stones. The Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration? The Ocean Emperor was the oldest celestial realm expert in the Shanghai Starfield. He was also the oldest ancestor of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect, an antique among antique. During the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration, many antiques in the Shanghai Starfield would come out of seclusion to congratulate him. The various elders of the Oceanic Sword sect would personally come to the Oceanic Sacrificial sect to congratulate him. The Ocean Emperor could be said to be the strongest expert in the Shanghai Starfield. Many young members of the Oceanic tribe would also come to congratulate him, hoping to gain his favor. The youngest celestial realm expert in the Oceanic Sacrificial sect, the East Forest Ocean Emperor, was the Ocean Emperor's disciple. It was said that the East Forest Ocean Emperor had once been chosen by the Ocean Emperor at a birthday celebration and taken in as a disciple. In just a few thousand years, the East Forest Ocean Emperor had become the Ocean Emperor of his generation. After all, the Ocean Emperor was a true celestial realm expert. Therefore, the congratulatory gifts would at least be useful to a celestial realm expert. Compared to immortal herbs, immortal medicines, and other precious treasures, immortal stones were the easiest to find. Therefore, every merchant guild would buy all of their immortal stones. Chu Fengmian knew about this from Hai Shirsi's memories, but he didn't know how to react for a while. The timing was somewhat unlucky. At least, it would be impossible for Chu Fengmian to buy a large number of immortal stones before the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration. Chapter 1896. After learning the reason, Chu Fengmian said directly. Chu Fengmian could slowly accumulate immortal stones, so he would buy the immortal stones in the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild first. 14th Young Master, please wait a moment. The Oblivion Sea King heard Chu Fengmian's words and disappeared from the room. I can go and take a look at the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration. I'm afraid the Blue Dragon sect will also send people over to investigate the situation of the Oceanrite sect. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. The person he wanted to kill was Lan Ming, an elder of the Oceanrite sect with a noble status. If Chu Fengmian killed Lan Ming, the Oceanrite sect would never let him go. Chu Fengmian also wanted to know the true strength of the Oceanrite sect, so he was looking for an opportunity to act. The Oceanrite sect's strength was mysterious even in Hai Shirsi's eyes. However, all the martial artists and Yao gods in the Songhai Star region knew one thing, and that was to never provoke the Oceanrite sect. Even someone as arrogant as Hai Shirsi didn't dare to provoke the Oceanrite sect. The Oceanrite sect's experts would certainly come out for the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration. Even the sect's old antiques would come out one after another to celebrate the Ocean Emperor's birthday. Not only the Songhai Star region, but also the forces of the surrounding star regions would send people to celebrate the Ocean Emperor's 50,000th birthday celebration. This was also the best opportunity to see the true strength of the Oceanrite sect. While Chu Fengmian was thinking about the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration, the Oblivion Sea King returned to the room, but his expression wasn't good. What's going on? Chu Fengmian was the first to speak. Seeing the Oblivion Sea King's expression, Chu Fengmian guessed that there was a problem with the immortal stones. The Oblivion Sea King walked over and hesitated for a moment before speaking. 14th Young Master, someone has come to buy immortal stones. Another consecrator of the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild has already agreed. Who is it? How dare you come and steal the things I want to buy? Chu Fengmian frowned and snorted coldly. Chu Fengmian was already dissatisfied with the 200 immortal stones, but now someone wanted to steal them. Take me there. I want to see who dares to steal my immortal stones. Really? Hai Shirsi, it's been a long time since we last met. You've become even more arrogant. You dare to show off in front of me? Just as Chu Fengmian left the room, two figures suddenly walked in from outside. The middle-aged man walking behind them was dressed like the Oblivion Sea King. He was also a consecrator of the Lunar Ocean Trade Union. However, the middle-aged man was extremely courteous to the young man walking in front of him. This was a young man who looked to be in his early 20s. He was a member of the sea race and had a sharp sword intent. One could feel it from afar. He was also a powerful sword cultivator. The voice just now was from this young man. Hai 13. When Chu Fengmian saw this young man, a name appeared in his mind. This was Hai Shirsan, the 13th prince who had followed Chu Fengmian to the southern city of Zhenhai. Who would have thought that he would run into them in the Lunar Ocean Trade Union? Moreover, Hai Shirsan was also here for the immortal stones. I heard that you want to buy immortal stones? Unfortunately, Consecrated One has already agreed to sell the immortal stones to me. Hai Shirsan sized up Chu Fengmian, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. Of course, if you come and beg me, I can give you a few immortal stones. How about it? 14th Prince, the 13th Prince came first this time. We can only sell the immortal stones to him. Standing behind Hai Shirsi, Consecrator One explained. Whether it was Hai Shirsan or Hai Shirsi, the Lunar Ocean Trade Union didn't want to offend them. Is that so? So what if he came first? Isn't the rule of the Lunar Ocean Trade Union that the highest bidder wins? How many immortal stones does he want to buy? Chu Fengmian suddenly asked the Oblivion Sea King beside him. The 13th prince wants to buy 100 immortal stones, all in sacred grade spirit stones. The Oblivion Sea King replied. 100? Sacred grade spirit stones? Chu Fengmian sneered with a disdainful smile. Hai Shi-san, a stingy person like you doesn't deserve to be a core disciple of the Ocean's Word sect. Chu Fengmian sneered. I want all the immortal stones in the Lunar Ocean Trade Union, all in divine grade spirit stones, twice the price. What do you think? All in divine grade spirit stones, twice the price. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. The Oblivion Sea King was still fine as he had seen Chu Fengmian's wealth. But Hai Shi-san and Consecrated One were shocked, especially Consecrated One, who couldn't believe it. Is what the 14th prince said true? Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you? Here are 40,000 divine grade spirit stones, count them yourself. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and tore the space apart. Suddenly, a pile of divine grade spirit stones flew out. 40,000 divine grade spirit stones piled up into a small mountain. Consecrated One looked at the pile of divine grade spirit stones with his mouth wide open. He didn't make a sound for a long time. Even though he was a half-step celestial realm expert, he had never seen so many divine grade spirit stones. The Oblivion Sea King was also shocked. He couldn't help but take a few more glances at Chu Fengmian. Even though he knew that Chu Fengmian had obtained a divine grade spirit stone vein, he still didn't see the divine grade spirit stones as wealth by directly buying them at double the price. Chu Fengmian's actions couldn't be described as extravagant. Hai Shi-san wanted to say something, but when he saw the mountain of divine grade spirit stones, he fell silent and couldn't say anything. The highest bidder wins. Hai Shi-san, if you can offer a higher price, I won't compete with you for the immortal stones. What do you think? Chu Fengmian looked at Hai Shi-san and sneered. Hai Shi-san and Hai Shi-san had been fighting for a long time. Even if they didn't have a goal, they would still fight for it. Moreover, both of them wanted the immortal stones. In the eyes of others, Chu Fengmian's action was just a grudge against Hai Shi-san. This Hai Shi-san is just a grudge. The Oblivion Sea King and Consecrated One looked at each other and saw through each other's thoughts. However, neither of them had the intention to stop the fight. They were happy to see the fight between Chu Fengmian and Hai Shi-san. After all, the one who would benefit in the end would be the lunar ocean commerce. All right, Hai Shi-san, it seems like you've obtained quite a fortuitous encounter this time. However, you have to be careful. Don't let your encounter be taken away by someone else in a few days. Hai Shi-san stared at Chu Fengmian and snorted coldly. He then left the lunar ocean commerce. Chapter 1898. It was the dream of all half-step celestial realm experts to transcend the Deva tribulation and ascend to immortality. Even in the Songhai star zone, there were only a few who could transcend the Deva tribulation and ascend to immortality in the past 1,000 years. Many half-step celestial realm experts did not attempt to transcend the Deva tribulation because they did not have enough experience. However, if there was a chance, even the Oblivion Sea King and Consecrator One wanted to transcend the Deva tribulation. Although the 9 domains have declined and are not worth mentioning, the 3 sacred domains have their eyes on the 9 domains now. We have to be fully prepared if we want to go. Consecrator One was calmer than the Oblivion Sea King. He thought for a moment and said, "We will plan this after the Ocean Emperor's birthday banquet." Yes, the other chambers of commerce should not know about Hai Shi-san's great opportunity. We have to take this opportunity to rope him in. The Oblivion Sea King and Consecrator One chatted for a while, and then left. It seems that the Songhai Star Zone has also heard about the 9 domains. The news spread quickly. Chu Fengmian strolled around the Zhenhai city while thinking about the conversation between Consecrator One and the Oblivion Sea King. The Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce had set up layers of restrictive formations to prevent people from prying and intruding. However, Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness was so strong that the restrictive formations could not stop his spiritual consciousness at all. Chu Fengmian had also heard the conversation between the two of them. They had also mentioned the 9 domains in their conversation. The news of the 9 domains' reappearance had spread far and wide. The Shanghai star zone was dozens of star zones away from the 9 domains. It took Chu Fengmian a lot of time to get there. Now, the news of the 9 domains' reappearance had spread from the Shanghai star zone. In the future, there would definitely be more and more experts pouring into the 9 regions. Once upon a time, the sacred region was extremely attractive to any warrior or Yao god. When the time came, the 9 domains would be more chaotic than it was now. Let's go to the Sea Sword sect and get the Sword Principal Totem first. Chu Fengmian sped up and walked toward the center of Jiannan City. Jiannan City had a gate to the Seasword sect. However, along the way, Chu Fengmian was still flipping through Hai Shirsi's memories, looking for information about Gu Hai. The Oblivion Sea King and Consecrated One both attributed the increase in strength of Chu Fengmian's disguise as Hai 14 to Gu Hai. After going through Hai Shirsi's memories, Chu Fengmian understood that this Gu Sea was actually an existence similar to the Sinkhole realm. It had buried the remains of countless ancient sea tribe sections. At the same time, countless treasures were buried. However, compared to Sinkhole Sky, Gu Hai was even more dangerous. No matter how strong one was, they would have a slim chance of survival if they stepped into Sinkhole Sky. In Hai Shirsi's memories, he was terrified of the Gu Sea. He had never stepped into the Gu Sea before. Xiao Chen's memories of Gu Hai were based on the descriptions of others. The Gu Sea was filled with danger. However, it also had countless treasures, attracting the cultivators and fiendish immortals of the vast sea star field to explore it. Any cultivator or fiendish immortal that could walk out of the Gu Sea alive would obtain great benefit. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they could reach the heavens in one step. The Gu Sea's remains. Just nice. I'll use this as a reason. After all, not many people know about the mysteries of the Gu Sea. Chu Fengmian had turned into Hai Shirsi, which was much stronger than the real Hai Shirsi. Originally, he wanted to find a reason. Now, he could use the Gu Sea's remains as a reason. Furthermore, the Seasword sect respected strength. The stronger one was, the easier it would be to do things there. While Chu Fengmian was thinking, he had already arrived at the center of Jiannan City. An illusory gate appeared before Chu Fengmian. This gate was half illusory and half real, making it impossible to see through its mysteries. This was the gate to the Seasword sect. The disciples of the Seasword sect could use this gate to return to the Seasword sect. At a glance, many Seasword sect disciples had already gathered in front of the gate. There were more than 1 million disciples in the Seasword sect. Many disciples came and went every day. Some of the Seasword sect disciples were also maintaining order, guiding the Seasword sect disciples into the gate. The Seasword sect was not actually located in the vast sea star field. Instead, it was located in a small independent world outside. Passing through the gate to Jiannan City required one to travel through a certain space to return to the Seasword sect. The spatial turbulence was extremely ferocious. It could be considered a natural barrier. Even Emperor Gu did not dare to take the risk. These Seasword sect disciples were waiting in line. They wanted to gather together and ride the ark together to pass through the spatial turbulence and return to the Seasword sect. When Chu Fengmian arrived, he glanced at the Seasword sect disciples in line. His figure flashed, and he directly flew over the crowd. When the Seasword sect disciples who were maintaining order saw Chu Fengmian flying over, no one stopped him. Instead, they all stood up respectfully. Who is this? There's no need to line up. This is against the rules. Some of the new disciples of the Seasword sect saw this scene and could not help but speak out. Shut up. This is the 14th young master. If he hears you, you won't even know how you died. Another disciple of the Sea's Word sect beside him said hurriedly. 14th young master, is this the core disciple of our Sea's Word sect? That new disciple said in surprise when he saw Chu Fengmian step into the illusory gate alone. Is he going to cross the spatial turbulence alone? Humph. The young masters of the Sea's Word sect are all like gods. They are omnipotent. We need to use the arc to resist the spatial turbulence, but it's like scratching an itch for them. That disciple of the Sea's Word sect snorted coldly. It is said that the third young master once fought alone against 3 half-step celestial being realm experts. He killed 2 of them and forced the famous glittering jewel 3 demons to flee. The young master's magical powers are not something that you can understand. Fought against 3 half-step celestial realm demons alone and killed 2 of them. That new disciple of the Sea's Word sect swallowed a mouthful of saliva in disbelief. Work hard. We're just outer disciples now. As long as we advance to the inner sect, our status will be incomparably noble in the future. Every sect will treat us with respect. Looking at Chu Fengmian's leaving figure, that disciple of the Sea's Word sect said longingly. End of chapter. Chapter 1899. Chu Fengmian stepped through the illusory door, and a mountain range appeared in front of him. At the end of the mountain range was a sea, and that was where the Sea's Word sect was located. It didn't take long for a spatial turbulence to sweep across the mountains. The Sea Sword sect disciples on the arcs were all working together to resist the attacks of the spatial turbulence. Even the ancient emperor could be sucked into the turbulence of space, and be torn apart by the power contained within. However, Chu Fengmian was not afraid at all. He allowed the spatial turbulence to attack him. He took a step forward and turned into a ray of light, flying towards the sea at the end of the mountain range. Beside Chu Fengmian, a burst of sword intent burst out and shrouded Chu Fengmian. When the spatial turbulence was 3 feet away from Chu Fengmian, it was shattered by the sword intent that shrouded his body. The spatial turbulence couldn't harm Chu Fengmian at all. Amazing! The sword intent is enough to break the spatial turbulence. The strength of the 14th young master is terrifying. Within the mountain range, there were many arcs that were traveling. The disciples of the Sea Sword sect were all shocked when they witnessed this scene. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's escape light had surpassed many arcs, flying towards the end of the mountain range. At this moment, a sharp sword intent suddenly fell from the sky, and a ray of sword light appeared. The ray of sword light appeared silently and slashed towards Chu Fengmian. The ray of sword light contained killing intent, and it could be called a fatal strike. Someone had suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian in the mountain range. However, Chu Fengmian had already expected this scene. The moment he saw the ray of sword light, the spiritual sword that belonged to Hai Shirsi on his back suddenly fell into his hand, and he also slashed out. The 2 rays of sword light collided in the air and shattered at the same time. Hai Shir-san, there's no need to hide. Come out. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he stared at the sky and slowly said. He already knew who the person who suddenly attacked was. It was only Hai Shir-san. Hai Shir-san was forced to retreat by Chu Fengmian in the Moon Ocean Commerce Chamber of Commerce, which made him lose face. With Hai Shir-san's character, he would definitely not tolerate it. Sure enough, he chose to make a move in the mountain range. Although the disciples of the Sea's Word sect were not allowed to kill their fellow disciples, no one would care if there was a fight. Even if they were injured in the fight, the Sea's Word sect would not care. Within a sect, only constant battles could give birth to one expert after another. Hai Shir-san, it seems like you did have a fortuitous encounter. You can actually block my sword. A figure descended from the sky and stood in front of Chu Fengmian. Traces of killing intent could be seen in his eyes. It was Hai Shir-san. Hai Shir-san, I heard that you have a whole divine spiritual stone vein? Why don't you share such a good thing with me? I don't want much. Just give me a few tens of thousands of divine-grade spirit stones and I'll let you go. Hai Shir-san said, His voice was full of greed. Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart when he heard this. Hai Shi-san was eyeing on his divine stone. Shi-san asked for tens of thousands of divine spiritual stones. Since Hai Shi-san was here to pick a fight, Chu Fengmian naturally would not be polite to him. What a joke! Hai Shi-san, do you think you're the Ocean Emperor? Let me go? Do you think you're my opponent today? Chu Fengmian looked at Hai Shi-san and said with a cold smile. You've offended me today. Kneel down now and I'll consider letting you go. Presumptuous! Hai Shi-san, it seems like you're tired of living. Hai Shi-san shouted angrily. His sword intent burst out. Sword light flickered, and several sword chi slashed towards Chu Fengmian from all directions. Is that so? Hai Shi-san, do you really think I'm not your opponent? Normally, I just don't want to reveal my strength, so I'll let you have a taste of my strength. Since you're courting death today, I'll fulfill your wish and show you my strength. Chu Fengmian laughed. He took a step forward and rushed towards Hai Shi-san in an instant. The sword in his hand condensed spiritual power and turned into a sword light that swept down. Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was the Seaward Sect's swordsmanship. However, with Chu Fengmian's understanding of swordsmanship, the same swordsmanship and the same power would be completely different. An ancient shadow appeared behind Chu Fengmian. It was the shadow of the founding ancestor of Seaward Sect. Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship had reached the great completion, which was enough to activate the ancient power contained within. The founding ancestor's shadow and Chu Fengmian's sword merged into one. The power was boundless, and the moment it struck, it swept away everything. All of Hai Shi-san's sword blades were mercilessly smashed to pieces. The tyrannical spiritual power exploded. Countless disciples of Seaward Sect in the mountains witnessed this scene. That's the founding ancestor of Seaward. Who is the founding ancestor of Seaward Sect? Whose swordsmanship can make the founding ancestor appear? Isn't it said that only the great completion of swordsmanship of Seaward Sect can do this? Looks like it's the 14th young master. Hai Shi-san? How is it possible? When did his swordsmanship reach such a level? This scene caused countless people to feel that it was inconceivable. However, what happened next caused them to feel even more astonished. A figure was sent flying by the sword. It was Hai Shi-san. Hai Shi-san was sent flying by a single move. He couldn't even resist a single move. Hai Shi-san was sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face was extremely pale. Your strength? How is it possible? Hai Shi-san was forced to retreat. He stared at Chu Fengmian with a look of disbelief. Hai Shi-san, don't you know? I'm just too lazy to take action. Do you really think that's all I've got? Chu Fengmian looked at Hai Shi-san with a disdainful smile. Get lost. I won't kill you. But remember, if you dare to appear in front of me in the future, I won't let you go. Let's go. Hai Shi-san didn't hesitate. He turned into a ray of light and disappeared in an instant. Although Seaward Sect didn't care about the fights between disciples, Hai Shi-san was still a core disciple. Killing Hai Shi-san would cause a lot of trouble. It wasn't worth it for Chu Fengmian to cause trouble for Hai Shi-san. It wouldn't be good if it affected Chu Fengmian's plan to obtain the sword principal totem. Therefore, Chu Fengmian let Hai Shi-san go today. After defeating Hai Shi-san, Chu Fengmian turned into a ray of light and continued to fly towards the end of the mountains. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1900. I didn't expect Hai Shi-san to be defeated in one move. Hai Shi actually has such strength? Hai Shi's strength has actually reached such a level? I wonder what kind of fortuitous encounter he had that allowed his strength to progress so quickly? Was Hai Shi hiding his strength? Or did he have a fortuitous encounter? He must have had a fortuitous encounter. With Hai Shi's character, he wouldn't have shown his strength if he had such strength earlier. He must have gained something recently. Greater mastery of swordsmanship. There aren't many elders in our Seasword sect who can achieve this. Among the core disciples, only the third young master can achieve this. Greater mastery of swordsmanship. With Hai Shirsi's strength, it won't be a problem for him to be ranked in the top 10 among the core disciples. On a mountain peak of the Seasword sect, a few people were looking at the direction of the battle. Every one of them had an incomparably powerful aura. They were all core disciples, and there were even elders of the Seasword sect. A distance of 1,000,000 miles was incomparably far for people like them. However, to them, everything that had just happened was clearly visible to them. Third young master, Hai Shirsi will become a great threat in the future. Everyone's gazes suddenly fell on the young man at the head of the group. He was like the moon surrounded by a myriad of stars. Even some of the disciples of the Seasword sect were extremely respectful towards the young man. The third young master was the person ranked third among the core disciples. However, the third young master wasn't called Hai-san, but Hai-changa. The core disciples of the Seasword sect were all known by their ranking, but Hai-changa didn't care about the rules. The elders of the Seasword sect didn't express any objection, which proved Hai-changa's extraordinary status. Although he was ranked third, there were quite a few elders and disciples in the entire Seasword sect who believed that he would be the next sect head of the sect. Because of this, even the other core disciples and even a few elders were incomparably respectful towards Hai-changa. Greater mastery of swordsmanship is nothing, Hai-changa said calmly, but his tone was filled with boundless confidence. Even after seeing Chu Fengmian's strength, he still didn't put Chu Fengmian in his eyes. Indeed, even if Hai Shirsi had some fortuitous encounters, how could he be compared to the third young master? That's true. I just had some fortuitous encounters. With Hai Shirsi's arrogant personality, he will suffer a great loss sooner or later. Hearing Hai-changa's words, several core disciples at the side agreed. It's said that Hai Shirsi obtained everything from the ancient sea. Suddenly, the Sea-sword sect elder, who had his eyes closed and seemed to be conversing with others, suddenly opened his eyes and spoke. I received news from the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild that Hai Shirsi spent a lot of money in the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. It is said that he obtained an entire divine-grade spirit stone vein. It seems like Hai Shirsi went to Guhai. Aside from Guhai, there cannot be any other place with a divine-grade spirit stone vein. A divine-grade spirit stone mine. How much wealth is this? Guhai. This Hai Shirsi sure has guts. He actually dared to charge into Guhai. From the looks of it, aside from obtaining an entire divine-grade spirit stone vein, this Hai Shirsi has also obtained other fortuitous encounters. No wonder his sword techniques have improved by leaps and bounds. It turns out that he obtained Gu Hai's treasure. The few core disciples discussed among themselves. Many of their tones were filled with envy. Fortuitous encounter in Gu Hai? Hai-changa's eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. Then, he said, find an opportunity to pull this Hai Shirsi over. This Gu Hai's fortuitous encounter is useful to me. Yes. The few core disciples replied respectfully. After a few more exchanges, the crowd on the mountain peak gradually dispersed. Chu Fengmian did not know that he had already been noticed by others. However, Chu Fengmian defeated Hai Shirsan under the watchful eyes of the crowd to establish his prestige and display his strength. In the Sea-sword sect, strength was respected. The stronger Chu Fengmian displayed his strength, the more he would be valued by the Sea-sword sect. At that time, it would be easier for him to comprehend the sword Dao Totem. The sword Dao Totem was the most precious treasure of the Sea-sword sect. Even the core disciples were not qualified to comprehend it casually. They had to apply for an opportunity and spend a large amount of contribution points to comprehend it. Chu Fengmian wanted to go to the Sea-sword sect, so the first thing he needed to do was to accumulate contribution points. Then, with the strength he displayed, It shouldn't be a problem for him to apply for the opportunity to comprehend the Sword Dao Totem. When he saw the Sword Dao Totem, it would be Chu Fengmian's opportunity to seize it. The news that Chu Fengmian defeated Hai Shisan in one move had already spread in the Sea Sword sect. Chu Fengmian's escape light reached the end of the mountains and stepped into the sea. Under the sea, there was a huge city built on the bottom of the sea. Although this city was not as big as the Jianwang city, the formations and restrictions set up in this city were countless times stronger than the one in the Jianwang city. This city was where the Sea Sword sect was located. It was the real lair of the Sea Sword sect. As soon as he stepped into the city, Chu Fengmian felt a surge of spiritual energy shrouding his body. It seemed to be probing Chu Fengmian's identity. This was the lair of the Sea Sword sect, so it certainly would not allow outsiders to enter easily. However, Chu Fengmian allowed the spiritual power to probe him and completely ignored it. His true strength had been hidden. Unless it was a real celestial realm expert, no one could see through Chu Fengmian's real strength. Soon, the spiritual powers probing ended and dispersed. Chu Fengmian landed in the city, then walked towards the northwest. The mission hall was located in the northwest of the city. It was the place where the Sea Sword sect issued missions to the disciples. Completing the missions given by the Sea Sword sect was the easiest way to earn contribution points. Chu Fengmian also planned to complete a few missions to earn contribution points first. Along the way, the disciples of the Sea Sword sect all retreated when they saw Chu Fengmian coming. Their manners were incomparably respectful. Even many core disciples stayed far away when they saw Chu Fengmian. The news that Chu Fengmian defeated Hai Shisan in one move had already spread in the Sea Sword sect. Defeating Hai Shisan in one move, even among the core disciples and elders of the Sea Sword sect, there were very few people who could do this. Chu Fengmian had established a supreme prestige with the identity of Hai Shisan. No one dared to provoke him at this time. End of chapter. Chapter 1901. Many disciples of the Sea Sword sect were talking about how he defeated Hai Shisan in one move. Along the way, Chu Fengmian also felt countless gazes. Some were envious, some were jealous, some were respectful, and others were different. Chu Fengmian didn't bother to pay attention to them. After all, he wasn't the real Hai Shisan. His purpose in coming to the Sea Sword sect was only to obtain the Sword Principle Totem. As long as he obtained the Sword Principle Totem, Chu Fengmian could leave and have nothing to do with the Sea Sword sect. Chu Fengmian walked all the way and soon arrived in front of a big hall. This was the mission hall, the place where the Sea Sword sect issued missions. The mission hall was considered the most prosperous place in the Sea Sword sect. The disciples who came and went to accept missions and came back to submit them saw Chu Fengmian and stepped aside, making a path for him. It's Hai Shisan. He's going to accept missions as soon as he came back? Didn't they say that he had a great adventure and obtained a lot of wealth? He actually came to accept missions directly. It seems that Hai Shisan's ambition is not small. Some disciples of the Sea Sword sect whispered among themselves. Chu Fengmian didn't care about these people's discussion and stepped into the mission hall with his head held high. 14th Young Master, what kind of mission do you want to accept? Some of the elders in charge of issuing missions in the mission hall greeted Chu Fengmian politely when they saw his arrival. If it was in the past, these elders would not be so courteous. After all, the status of an elder was higher than that of a core disciple. But now that the news of Chu Fengmian defeating Hai Shisan in one move spread, the elders' attitude also changed accordingly. In the eyes of these elders, Hai Shisan's future achievement was only to become an elder. At most, he would be on equal footing with them, so they didn't care about him. But now, Hai Shisan had a great adventure and even had a chance to become the sect master. Even if there was a slight chance, they would try to win over Hai Shisan now to avoid being punished in the future. This was the benefit of strength. Only strength could earn people's respect. I want to accept a few heaven-level missions. The more contribution points, the better. Chu Fengmian walked to the front of an elder and said indifferently. The missions of the Seaward sect were also divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Yellow missions were suitable for outer disciples, Black missions for inner disciples, Earth missions for seed disciples, and Heaven missions for core disciples and elders. High Shirsi's identity was naturally going to accept Heaven-level missions. These missions have just been received. The mission hall elder took out a few jade talismans and handed Chu Fengmian. These talismans recorded the contents of missions. Generally, even a level 9 ancient emperor would find it difficult to complete a heaven-grade mission. In order to complete a heaven-grade mission, one had to be at least a peak level 9 ancient emperor. To High Sex sect master was the Sea Sword CCCC, was to the Sea Sex sect were assassins assassinated assassins? But Chu Fengmian looked at a few of them and frowned. He wasn't very satisfied. The highest reward of these missions was only 15,000 contribution points. The lowest ones were only a few thousand contribution points. According to High Shirsi's memory, one would need 100,000 contribution points to comprehend the Sword Dao Totem. Although Chu Fengmian knew from High Shirsi's memory that the average reward of a heaven-level mission was around 10,000 contribution points, this was too little for Chu Fengmian. Moreover, these missions were very scattered. It would take Chu Fengmian a lot of time to travel. He didn't want to waste so much time. 14th Young Master, are you not satisfied? Are there no missions you want to accept? The mission hall elder looked at Chu Fengmian's expression and asked. That's right. These missions are too easy and I need a lot of contribution points. Aren't there any harder missions with higher contribution points? Chu Fengmian put down the jade talismans and said. Missions with higher contribution points. The mission hall elder looked at the jade talismans in his hand as if he was looking for something. Suddenly, he raised his head and said to Chu Fengmian as if he thought of something. There is indeed a new mission, but the difficulty of this mission isn't something a core disciple can accept. Is that so? I'd like to see if there's any mission that I can't accept. Give it to me. Hearing this, Chu Fengmian said loudly. For Chu Fengmian, it didn't matter if the mission was difficult. Since he wasn't in the Seaward sect, he didn't need to worry about anything and could use his full strength. If Chu Fengmian used his full strength, he could even kill a peak half-step celestial realm expert. This so-called difficulty was nothing to Chu Fengmian. This is the mission. The mission hall elder looked at Chu Fengmian's arrogant look and didn't stop him. He moved his palm and a jade talisman flew out. This jade talisman looked different from the previous ones. There was a word engraved on it. Suicide Mission. Chu Fengmian's eyes lit up when he saw the jade talisman. Chu Fengmian also knew that the missions issued by the mission hall, in addition to the Heaven and Earth Fantasy mission, also included the Suicide Mission. This kind of suicide mission was extremely dangerous even for the elders of the Seaward sect. Therefore, it was called Suicide Mission. As for the core disciples, they didn't dare to take this suicide mission. However, the difficulty of the suicide mission was high, and the contribution points awarded were much more, even several times that of the heaven-level mission. Chu Fengmian took the jade talisman and injected spiritual power into it. The content of the mission appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind. Reward: 100,000 contribution points. Seeing the number of the reward, Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. After completing this suicide mission, Chu Fengmian would have 100,000 contribution points to comprehend the Sword Principle Totem. 100,000 contribution points, for a core disciple, would take years to accumulate. However, with such a generous reward, the difficulty of this mission wouldn't be easy. Chu Fengmian glanced at it and roughly understood. This mission was to eliminate a force that had always been an enemy of the Seaward sect, the Glittering Jewel Dynasty. The Glittering Jewel Dynasty was a demonic force that was established in the Songhai Star Zone. It burned, killed, and plundered, destroying countless small forces. The strength of the Glittering Jewel Dynasty was extremely terrifying. They had 3 half-step celestial realm experts, known as the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons. Therefore, not many people dared to provoke the Glittering Jewel Dynasty. However, just a while ago, 2 of the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons were killed, and their strength was greatly reduced. This mission was to directly destroy the Glittering Jewel Dynasty and kill the remaining one of the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons. First, set a small goal such as 1 second. Remember, Book Guest House Mobile Version Website. Chapter 1902. The Glittering Jewel 3 Demons must have been killed by the 3rd Young Master. When Chu Fengmian saw this name, he suddenly remembered what someone had been talking about. The 3rd Young Master of the Sea Sword Sect fought against the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons alone and killed 2 of them. Because of this, the strength of the Glittering Jewel Dynasty was greatly reduced. The Sea Sword Sect also issued a task for their disciples and elders to eradicate the Glittering Jewel Dynasty. This task is indeed extremely difficult. It can be called a suicide mission. After reading the content of the Jade Token, Chu Fengmian understood why this task was called a suicide mission. If he wanted to complete this mission, he would need to kill at least a half-step Celestial Realm powerhouse. Of course, it was not that simple. The remaining one of the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons was the strongest of the 3 demons, Glittering Jewel Jia. His strength was stronger than an ordinary half-step Heaven Realm Master. Moreover, Glittering Jewel Jia was now holed up in the Glittering Jewel Dynasty. To complete this task, one must attack the Glittering Jewel Dynasty alone. Although the other 2 demons of the Glittering Jewel Dynasty were dead, there were still many demons in the Emperor Realm and even Emperor Gu's realm. There were many demons at the peak of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. If these demons joined forces, it would be troublesome. Moreover, to attack the Glittering Jewel Dynasty, one would have to face countless barriers and spirit arrays. It could be said that this suicide mission was difficult for even a half-step Heaven Realm Master to accept. The Glittering Jewel 3 Demons had been running the Glittering Jewel Dynasty for hundreds of years. It was heavily guarded. If one rashly broke in, they would not be able to protect themselves. What do you think? This task is not something you can accept. I have a few more tasks here. You can take a look. The task hall elder smiled and said after seeing Chu Fengmian finish reading the task. He also saw Chu Fengmian's arrogance just now and wanted to take him down a notch. After all, this was a suicide mission. As an elder of the Sea Sword Sect and a half-step Heaven Realm Master, he was not sure if he could accept it. This task is good. I'll accept it. After reading the Jade Token, Chu Fengmian did not hand it back. Instead, he put it away, which meant that Chu Fengmian had accepted the task. The task of the Sea Sword Sect could only be accepted by one person at a time. Only if the task failed or voluntarily gave up could the next person take it. What? You want to accept this task? The task hall elder was shocked when he heard Chu Fengmian. His exclamation attracted the gazes of quite a few Sea Sword Sect disciples in the mission hall. They all looked over and just happened to see the jade talisman in Chu Fengmian's hand. The Sea Sword Sect's disciples sect disciples sect masters. Suicide mission. Does this Hai Shirsi not want to live anymore? Is he going to accept a suicide mission? Isn't this life-ending mission something that even the elders can't accept? Many of the core disciples' faces drastically changed. Suicide missions were something that they did not dare to touch. They did not even dare to try to accept them. 1. If sect was sect. 1 sect. Sect disciples. This was to let the disciples who accepted the task know their limit. Now, Chu Fengmian wanted to accept the task. You really want to accept it? The task hall elder looked at Chu Fengmian and asked in disbelief. Although Linlang dynasty has lost 2 half-step celestial realm experts, the other experts are still here. 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu's 14 demon venerables are still here, don't worry. It's just a few demons. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, took the jade token and left. His figure turned into a ray of light and left the task hall in a flash. Hai Shirsi really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Does he think he can kill half-step celestial realm experts now that he's strong? Linlang Jie is not an ordinary half-step celestial realm expert. He's too arrogant. Hai Shirsi will definitely suffer this time. He may even die in Linlang Jie's hands. Ridiculous. Even the third young master could not kill Linlang Jie. How dare Hai Shirsi accept this task? Forget it. We wanted to recruit Hai Shirsi. Now that Hai Shirsi has accepted the task and left, let's go back and tell the third young master. The few core disciples chatted for a while and left one after another. Linlang dynasty is in the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian flew all the way and left the seaward sect, flying in the direction of the chaotic ocean. The chaotic ocean where Linlang dynasty was located was not in the Sword Sea. It was not even in the territory of the 3 major forces. It was an extremely unique sea. The chaotic ocean, as the name suggested, was extremely chaotic. It was considered a lawless place in the vast sea star region. There were undercurrents surging and demonic aura surging. There were countless hidden dangers. Some of the demonic aura even gathered with the seawater to form the eye of the sea. It was strong enough to suck in and suppress a half-step celestial realm expert. There were also many ancient sea beasts living in it. It was difficult for outsiders to set foot in it. It was said that there were some ancient sea beasts in the chaotic ocean. There were even some old demons that had lived for tens of thousands of years. That was why there was demonic aura everywhere. Some demonic cultivators in the vast sea star region and foreign tribes that were being hunted down by the sea race were hiding in the chaotic ocean. Many experts had established many forces in the chaotic ocean. The Linlang dynasty was considered one of the major forces in the chaotic ocean. Because of the uniqueness of the chaotic ocean, ordinary people could not set foot in the chaotic ocean. Hai Shirsi had only heard of the chaotic ocean but had never been there. However, the location of the Linlang dynasty was recorded in the Jade Talisman. Chu Fengmian followed the map and rode the immemorial centipede. After 5 days, Chu Fengmian finally arrived at a sea. This was the chaotic ocean. The moment he stepped into the chaotic ocean, Chu Fengmian felt a demonic aura. This demonic aura had already merged with the seawater of the chaotic ocean. It was no wonder that the entire chaotic ocean had changed. This demonic aura. It's possible that there are some old demons hiding in the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian felt the demonic aura. He also felt that the rumors were true. Chu Fengmian had to be careful. Fortunately, the Linlang dynasty was at the periphery of the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian did not need to go deep into the chaotic ocean. This way it would be less dangerous. Roar! At this moment, a huge figure that was thousands of feet tall suddenly appeared. It seemed to have seen Chu Fengmian. It suddenly opened its mouth and tried to swallow Chu Fengmian. First, set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, Book Guest House. Chapter 1903. It was a humongous sea beast, thousands of feet long. It was an ancient yuan whale. This kind of yuan whale was a colossus among the sea beasts. In ancient times, it was the overlord of the sea. The ancestors of the sea beasts and the sea clan originated from the black whale, one of the innate divine beasts. However, a sea god rose from the sea clan and led the sea clan to prosperity and civilization. The sea beasts, on the other hand, remained the same as in ancient times. They were still beasts without much spiritual intelligence. This kind of ancient sea beast, like a wild beast, had a humongous body. This sea beast was only at the peak of the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu's realm, but it was already so humongous. When Chu Fengmian entered the chaotic ocean, he had kept the primordial centipede in case he encountered any trouble. If the primordial centipede was around, the ancient Yuan whale would not dare to approach it. However, now that Chu Fengmian was alone, the ancient Yuan whale dared to attack him directly. The power of the ancient Yuan whale was stronger than that of a demon god of the same realm. Its body, which was thousands of feet long, also gave it great power. However, in Chu Fengmian's eyes, the power of the ancient Yuan whale was no different from that of an ant. Sword out! Swoosh! Chu Fengmian pointed his finger and turned it into a sword chi, slashing at the ancient Yuan whale. The humongous ancient Yuan whale was cut into two halves by Chu Fengmian's sword light. Devour! At the same time, Chu Fengmian operated the sky-devouring secret skill and grabbed at the ancient Yuan whale. The ancient Yuan whale's blood was sucked dry and condensed in Chu Fengmian's palm, turning into a ball of blood essence. This ball of blood essence was the condensation of the ancient Yuan whale's blood. It contained extremely pure spiritual power. Many Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu would fight for it outside. The ancient Yuan whale is indeed a branch of the black whale's descendants. However, the black whale's bloodline in this one's blood is too little. Chu Fengmian opened his palm and carefully felt the power in this ball of blood essence as he muttered to himself. The ancient Yuan whale clan was said to be the sea beasts closest to the black whale bloodline, which was equivalent to the ancient war dragon clan of the Dragon Clan. However, the bloodline of the one before them was already extremely thin. After all, the ancient Yuan whale race had reproduced for thousands of generations, so the bloodline of the mysterious whale was getting thinner and thinner. If Chu Fengmian hadn't fused with the primeval qi and was extremely sensitive to the power of the innate divine beast bloodline, he wouldn't even have been able to detect the power of the profound whale's bloodline in the primordial whale's bloodline. Chu Fengmian would probably have to kill hundreds of such ancient origin whales in order to gather a little bit of the profound whale bloodline power from their bloodlines. Of course, even if it was just a little bit, it would not be of much use. It was far from enough to control the power of the mysterious whale. Innate divine beast bloodline. If I have the chance, I can master a few more. However, even if I kill all the ancient Yuan whales in the chaotic ocean, I won't be able to gather enough bloodlines. Chu Fengmian's current strength was inseparable from the innate divine beast bloodline in his body. Chu Fengmian had already mastered the dragon origin and the heaven-devouring origin. However, he had to rely on the claws of progenitor Tianlong and the heart of the heaven-devouring beast to merge their primeval qi with Chu Fengmian's. Although Chu Fengmian had also obtained a part of the Ting serpent bloodline, it was too little. Therefore, Chu Fengmian couldn't control the power of the Ting serpent bloodline at all. If Chu Fengmian wanted to control more innate divine beast bloodline power, he would need a large amount of bloodline power. The amount of bloodline in the primordial whale was too little. This little bit of bloodline was useless to Chu Fengmian. I have to kill at least 10,000 of these primordial whales and extract their bloodline to have a small chance of comprehending the power of the mysterious whale. Chu Fengmian sighed. 10,000 primordial whales might not even be in the entire chaotic ocean, or even the entire Tsanghai star region. Moreover, Chu Fengmian couldn't go on a killing spree in the Tsanghai star region to hunt the primordial whales. Let's deal with the glittering jewel dynasty first. Chu Fengmian's mind flickered and a wave of spiritual power suppressed the primordial whale's essence blood in his palm. In addition to the bloodline power, the essence blood of the primordial whale also contained a demonic intent. The chaotic ocean had been eroded by the demonic intent, and the living creatures in it were no exception. The primordial whales weren't ferocious sea beasts. However, the primordial whales in the chaotic ocean had been eroded by the demonic intent, so each and every one of them had become extremely violent. Chu Fengmian shuttled under the sea towards the glittering jewel dynasty, encountering many attacks from sea beasts along the way. The glittering jewel dynasty is in this area. Chu Fengmian followed the map and came to an oceanic trench in the chaotic ocean. The glittering jewel dynasty was built in this oceanic trench. From the outside, there seemed to be nothing inside, but Chu Fengmian felt that this oceanic trench had been concealed by some means. Break! Chu Fengmian took a glance and condensed a sword light in the palm of his hand. He slashed down fiercely on the oceanic trench. Boom! As Chu Fengmian's sword light fell, the entire oceanic trench trembled. There seemed to be signs of something shattering. The great array that enveloped the Linlang Empire shattered with a loud bang as cracks appeared on it. Chu Fengmian had a panoramic view of the glittering jewel dynasty that was hidden in the oceanic trench through these cracks. The glittering jewel dynasty was a force established by the glittering jewel three demons. It looked like a city built on the seabed like Jianwang City and Solitary Sea City. However, it was a demonic city. Chu Fengmian smelled the stench of blood as soon as he broke the great array of the glittering jewel dynasty. Blood and human bones were everywhere in the glittering jewel dynasty. The glittering jewel dynasty was an out-and-out demonic force. It hid in the chaotic ocean and was lawless. Usually, the demons of the glittering jewel dynasty would plunder other sea cities. Regardless of whether it was the Sea Clan or the Human Clan, they would be captured and brought to the glittering jewel dynasty. Their blood essence would be extracted and turned into food. Although there were 9 demon city and 6 demon sects in the 9 domains, they would not go too far due to the other sections. However, the glittering jewel dynasty was unscrupulous. Countless martial artists and demon immortals had died in the glittering jewel dynasty. End of chapter. Chapter 1904. The cities that had been plundered by the glittering jewel dynasty were barren and devoid of life. All life would be plundered in the glittering jewel dynasty and devoured by the disciples of the demonic sect. A bunch of beasts. Chu Fengmian glanced at the glittering jewel dynasty with murderous intent in his eyes. Chu Fengmian had only seen such a lawless demonic sect in ancient books. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he could see that the scene was much more tragic than what was recorded in the ancient books. Who is it? How dare you come to the glittering jewel dynasty? Whoosh! As the formation shattered, a figure suddenly flew out from the inside of the glittering jewel dynasty. It was a middle-aged man. There were still traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. Just a moment ago, he had devoured a member of the Sea Clan. This middle-aged man was at the pinnacle of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian recognized him at a glance. He was one of the 14 demon sovereigns of the glittering jewel dynasty, the earthly exterminating demon sovereign. The 14 demon sovereigns of the glittering jewel dynasty were all at the pinnacle of the level 9 Emperor Gu. They were all old demons who had lived for thousands of years and had devoured countless lives to cultivate their demonic technique. An ordinary 9 tribulations Emperor Gu would not be a match for them in a one-on-one fight. Hi Shirsi? I didn't expect it to be you. How dare a piece of trash like you come to the glittering jewel dynasty? The earthly exterminating demon sovereign looked at Chu Fengmian and recognized him at a glance. Hai Shirsi was one of the core disciples of the Sea Sword sect. He was quite famous in the entire Songhai Star Zone. The earthly exterminating demon sovereign looked at Chu Fengmian with greed in his eyes. Great! I haven't eaten such a powerful member of the Sea tribe for a long time. Hai Shirsi, since you've delivered yourself to me, I won't hold back. The earthly exterminating demon sovereign roared and suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian with his palm. This palm contained endless demonic blood. No one knew how many living beings the earth exterminating demon Venerate had killed in his life. He had turned the essence blood of these living beings into demonic blood and formed this demonic blood giant hand that contained the power of millions of living beings that had died in his hands. The blood-red demonic blood tree swept towards Chu Fengmian. In an instant, the entire Linlang dynasty was shaken. The Linlang dynasty was built in an oceanic trench that was filled with dense demonic intent. The strength of the earth exterminating demon Venerate was much more terrifying here than it was outside. The power of a single palm was enough to exterminate all life in the world. However, in the face of this palm, Chu Fengmian only revealed a hint of disdain at the corner of his mouth. He pointed his finger, and it turned into thousands of sword auras that instantly blasted out. Boom! The demonic blood palm shattered under the onslaught of the 1,000 rays of sword chi and exploded. At the same time, the body of the Earth Exterminating Demon Reverend exploded. The Earth Exterminating Demon Reverend did not even have the strength to resist as his body was pierced by thousands of sword chi. There was a loud bang. The earthly destruction demon Venerable's body immediately exploded, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and collected it into his palm, turning it into a drop of demon blood. What's going on? The Earth's Annihilation's aura has disappeared. Earth Annihilation is dead? Who is it? Suddenly, a few more figures flew out from the Linlang dynasty. There were a total of 13 of them, and they were the remaining 13 demon reverends. They were usually in seclusion. When they sensed that someone had destroyed the great array of the Linlang dynasty, they came out from their seclusion. However, before they could arrive, they sensed that the Earth Exterminating Demon Venerable had been killed. Their expressions changed drastically. Hai Shirsi? How is this possible? The Earth Exterminating Demon Venerable was killed by Hai Shirsi? Since when did Hai Shirsi become so powerful? Forget it, let's kill him first. The 13 demon reverends came out from their seclusion and looked towards Chu Fengmian. Their eyes were filled with killing intent, and they did not waste any time and attacked together. In an instant, the demons danced wildly, and demonic intent filled the sky. These demon sovereigns of the glittering jewel dynasty were all old devils who had lived for thousands of years. Their hands were stained with the blood of countless people. The moment they attacked, they gathered their demonic will and transformed into ancient demon gods that attacked Chu Fengmian. Demon slaying. Chu Fengmian took out his spiritual sword and instantly displayed a kind of demon-slaying sword technique. This kind of demon-slaying sword technique was recorded in the Sword Dao Totem. It was a sword technique that could be used to slay the demon clan. It had a restraining effect on the demon clan. Chu Fengmian held the spiritual sword and took a step forward, rushing forward. In front of his sword, all the demonic intent could not enter Chu Fengmian's body. The demons that rushed forward were all killed by Chu Fengmian's sword. Die. Chu Fengmian took a step forward and his sword flashed. 3 of the demon reverends were mercilessly killed. Their blood essence was also collected by Chu Fengmian, turning into demonic blood and falling into Chu Fengmian's palm. After collecting the blood essence, he also cut off the hope of these demons being reborn. What's going on? Since when did Hai Shirsi become so powerful? In an instant, another 3 demon reverends died in Chu Fengmian's hands. The remaining 10 demon reverends were extremely shocked. They retreated and looked at each other. Wake up the Lord! Waves of demonic intent burst out as if to wake up someone. Chu Fengmian did not bother to stop them. Holding the spiritual sword, he rushed toward the 10 demon reverends again. A few sword lights, each sword light was enough to kill a demon reverend. In a few breaths, only 5 of the 14 demon reverends were left. The other 9 were all killed by Chu Fengmian, and their blood essence was taken by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian looked at the remaining 5 demon reverends. Just as he was about to kill them all, the demonic intent of the entire glittering jewel dynasty suddenly surged. The horde of devils howled as an ancient fiend descended. It was an old man with a ferocious face. The other 5 demon reverends looked at the old man as if they were looking at their savior. The last one of the glittering jewel 3 demons was Linlang Jie. Linlang Jie's aura was much stronger than an ordinary half-step celestial being. Although he had not reached the peak of the half-step celestial being realm, he could fight against 2 or 3 ordinary half-step celestial beings. Linlang Jie descended and looked at the scene of heavy casualties. His eyes were filled with boundless murderous intent. It was as if a real demon god was enraged. If it were a slightly weaker martial artist, they would have been scared to death by such killing intent. Hai Shirsi, how dare you provoke our glittering jewel dynasty? Even Hai Changa did not dare to come to my glittering jewel dynasty to find trouble with me. How dare you? You are courting death. End of chapter. Chapter 1905. Linlang Jie's gaze fell on Chu Fengmian, and his lips curled into a sinister smile. Hai Shirsi, aren't you going to give me an explanation for killing so many of my men? Is that so? Why wouldn't I, Hai Shirsi, dare to do what Hai Changa didn't dare to do? Chu Fengmian sneered. What explanation? Today is the day of the Linlang dynasty's demise. Linlang Jie, if you know what's good for you, kill yourself and I'll leave your corpse intact. You're courting death. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Linlang Jie couldn't hold back his anger and suddenly attacked. Hai Shirsi, you've killed so many of my men. Today, I'll capture you and pour my demonic blood into you, turning you into a demonic corpse. I'll make up for the loss of my Linlang dynasty. Linlang Jie's eyes flashed fiercely as he shouted coldly. 1,000 demonic suppression. Rumble. Suddenly, Linlang Jie made a grabbing motion with his hand. Balls of devil will turned into thousands of devil clan members. These devil clan members looked at Chu Fengmian with a ferocious expression. They roared and charged towards Chu Fengmian from all directions. Linlang Jie didn't intend to kill Chu Fengmian, but to refine Chu Fengmian into a demonic corpse to serve him. Among these tens of thousands of devils, many of them had turned into devil wills, trying to enter Chu Fengmian's body and corrode it with their devil wills. You want to corrode me with mere demonic will? Chu Fengmian sneered when he saw the demonic will corrode his body. A sword essence erupted from his back. This sword essence completely enveloped Chu Fengmian's body. Any demonic will that got close to Chu Fengmian would be destroyed by the sword essence. No demonic will could get close to Chu Fengmian's body. What a strong sword essence! Hai Shirsi, it seems like you've obtained a great opportunity. Looking at the sword essence on Chu Fengmian's body, Linlang Jie's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. But soon after, a greedy look appeared in his eyes. Great, the more opportunities you've obtained, the more useful you'll be when I refine you into a demonic corpse. Linlang sneered and attacked again. This time, it was not Moe, but Linlang himself. Linlang Jie's body was devouring the surrounding demonic will in a frenzy. No one knew how much demonic will he had devoured. His entire body had turned into 100 feet tall giant. The demonic will on his body had turned into demonic scales. At a glance, he had already become a half-human, half-demon existence. Countless cracks appeared on the ground of the Linlang dynasty. Countless devil clan members flew out from these cracks. These devil clan members were raised by the Linlang dynasty and were hidden under the ground of the Linlang dynasty. Linlang Jie ruled over the demons like an ancient demon emperor. As long as he gave the order, all the demons would obey his command and kill everything in sight. I won't waste any more time with you. Anyway, the entire Linlang dynasty will be destroyed. Chu Fengmian looked at Linlang Jie and took a step forward. The shocking sword will that enveloped Chu Fengmian poured into Chu Fengmian's sword. At the same time, the ancient phantom of the Sea Sword Emperor also condensed behind Chu Fengmian and was integrated into the sword edge. This sword was the great accomplishment of the Sea Sword Sex sword technique. Destroy. Chu Fengmian's sword edge fell. In an instant, the thousands of devil clan members were annihilated. The sword edge slashed Linlang Jie's body. In an instant, the scales and demonic will on Linlang Jie's body were shattered. His 100 feet tall body was mercilessly destroyed by the sword edge. The profundity of Chu Fengmian's sword was not inferior to that of the ancestor who founded the Sea Sword sect, the Sea Sword Emperor. Linlang Jie's expression changed drastically. He had never expected that Chu Fengmian's sword edge would be so terrifying. No. He wanted to escape, but there was nowhere for him to run. This sword edge had expanded by 1,000,000 times, and the entire Linlang dynasty was shrouded by this sword edge. It was unknown how many disciples of the Linlang dynasty had died under this sword edge. The disciples of the Linlang dynasty were all devils. Since Chu Fengmian wanted to destroy the Linlang dynasty, he naturally did not intend to let any of them escape. Linlang Jie wanted to give up and escape by himself. However, Chu Fengmian's eyes were fixed on him. The moment Linlang Jie appeared, a sword light slashed down mercilessly. Even Linlang Jie was unable to retaliate before he was killed by the sword. Devour. Chu Fengmian activated the sky-devouring secret technique. The essence blood of countless disciples of the Linlang dynasty was devoured by Chu Fengmian and turned into drops of demonic blood. Among the demonic blood, a drop of demonic blood contained the most terrifying demonic will. This drop of demonic blood had tried to escape countless times after falling into the sky-devouring secret technique. It was the demonic blood that was transformed from Linlang Jie's essence blood. However, with a single thought from Chu Fengmian, restrictions began to press down on Linlang Jie. Linlang Jie's demonic blood no longer had the ability to resist. The demonic blood was thrown into an empty ring by Chu Fengmian. Below, the Linlang dynasty had become a pile of trash. There were no disciples of the Linlang dynasty who were still alive. The Linlang dynasty, which had committed all kinds of evil, had been wiped out by Chu Fengmian alone. From now on, there would be no Linlang dynasty in the world. Chu Fengmian swept his gaze around and saw a palace amidst the ruins in the depths of the Linlang dynasty. This palace was not destroyed by Chu Fengmian's sword. However, the restriction array that originally enveloped the palace had been completely shattered. The palace could be said to be on the verge of collapse. Chu Fengmian walked over and pushed open the door of the palace. At a glance, he saw countless spiritual stones piled up. This is the treasury of the Linlang dynasty. Chu Fengmian pushed open the door of the palace. The moment he saw the spiritual stones, he knew that this was the treasury of the Linlang dynasty. The Linlang dynasty was a force that had been established in the Songhai Star Zone for thousands of years. Usually, when the Linlang dynasty ransacked the cities, not only did they capture living creatures, but they also looted the wealth of the cities and brought it back to their lair. After thousands of years of accumulation, the wealth in the treasury of the Linlang dynasty was not inferior to the treasury of the four major forces of the Daluo Star Zone. There were even more treasures in it. After all, the prosperity of the Songhai Star Zone was far from what the Daluo Star Zone could compare with. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and collected everything in the treasury into his empty ring. The Linlang dynasty had been extinguished, and all the wealth belonged to Chu Fengmian. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1906. The wealth accumulated by the glittering jewel dynasty was much more than Chu Fengmian had imagined. There was another world within this palace. There were a total of 9 floors. Although there were fewer treasures on each floor compared to the previous one, the value of each floor was much higher. However, most of the treasures in the treasury were not of much use to Chu Fengmian now. Only immortal stones, immortal items, or even some unique heavenly wonder items and sacred medicines would be useful to Chu Fengmian now. Chu Fengmian stepped into the 9th floor of the palace. This should be the core of the glittering jewel dynasty's treasury. There should be more treasures here. The glittering jewel 3 demons were often ambushed when they moved around the Songhai Star Zone. Therefore, their treasures were all hidden in the treasury. After all, the glittering jewel dynasty was their nest and the safest place. Therefore, there were not many treasures in glittering jewel's empty ring. The treasures were all in the treasury. Chu Fengmian stepped into the 9th floor of the palace. There were not many treasures on the 9th floor. There was only a wooden shelf with a few items on it. Oh, this is? Chu Fengmian suddenly smelled a medicinal fragrance. He looked over and saw a jade bottle on the wooden shelf. There were more than a dozen elixirs in the jade bottle. The jade bottle was sealed, but it still emitted a medicinal fragrance. The elixirs in the jade bottle were definitely not ordinary items. Chu Fengmian walked over and picked up the jade bottle. As soon as he opened it, a pure medicinal fragrance gushed out. It also contained an ancient medicinal power. The elixirs in the jade bottle were definitely primeval-grade sacred elixirs. Sacred elixirs of this grade were almost extinct in this era. To refine primeval-grade sacred elixirs, one would need at least several types of primeval-grade sacred elixirs. In this era, it was not easy to find primeval and medieval-grade sacred elixirs, let alone primeval-grade sacred elixirs. Some of the old antiques still had some primeval-grade sacred elixirs. However, most of them were obtained from ancient ruins. After tens of thousands of years, the medicinal power contained in the elixirs had gradually dissipated. Even though the medicinal effects of the ancient sage elixir dissipated very slowly over the years, any ancient sage elixir that was found in the ancient sage elixir that had 70% of its medicinal effects would be considered to be of the highest quality. For most of the primordial sacred pills, it was already considered good if they had 50% of their medicinal power left. However, judging from the pure medicinal power contained in the bottle of ancient sacred pills in Chu Fengmian's hand, it was definitely not the kind of ancient sacred pills unearthed from ruins. Instead, it was an ancient sacred pill that had just been concocted not long ago. It had been concocted in the past 10 years. In this bottle of ancient sage pills, every single pill contained 100% of the medicinal power. Not a single drop was lost. If an ancient sacred elixir with 100% medicinal strength was put up for auction, it would be enough to make countless experts of the half-step celestial realm go crazy for it. Chu Fengmian didn't expect that the treasury of the Glittering Jewel Dynasty would contain such a treasure. The treasury of the Glittering Jewel Dynasty was a pleasant surprise for Chu Fengmian. After all, Chu Fengmian had only destroyed the Glittering Jewel Dynasty to complete the mission of the Sea Sword sect. Who would have thought that there would be such a harvest this time? Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. He poured out an ancient sacred elixir from the jade bottle. This ancient sacred elixir had a golden luster. The power contained in it was actually the power of a strange beast. This primordial sacred elixir was like a huge beast that contained endless power. Divine Elephant Dark Strength Elixir? This is the Divine Elephant Dark Strength Elixir? Chu Fengmian exclaimed when he felt the power of this ancient sacred elixir. He recognized the identity of this ancient sacred elixir at a glance. The Divine Elephant Dark Strength Elixir. For all the martial artists and demon immortals of the body refining path, this was the elixir that they yearned for the most. In terms of value, it was no less than the hidden gold essence and the six-winged centipede. The divine elephant was one of the innate divine beasts. It represented the pinnacle of physical strength in the world. Even other innate divine beasts couldn't compete with the divine elephant in terms of strength. The descendants of the divine elephant, heavenly elephant, mysterious elephant, and ancient elephant were also the representatives of the power of the demon beast clan. This divine elephant dark strength elixir was a type of sacred elixir that was refined from several sacred elixirs of the body refining path and a little bit of the divine elephant's bloodline. This divine elephant dark strength elixir was one of the best elixirs for martial artists and demon immortals to condense an immortal real body. Many experts in the ancient era relied on this divine elephant dark strength elixir to condense an immortal real body. But now, the ancient sacred elixir used to refine the divine elephant dark strength elixir was extremely rare. Chu Fengmian had only seen this type of elixir in ancient books. In the 9 regions, this divine elephant dark strength elixir hadn't been successfully refined for tens of thousands of years. He didn't expect the glittering jewel 3 demons to have gathered all the materials needed to refine the divine elephant dark strength elixir. They even managed to refine it. There were a total of 13 divine elephant dark strength elixirs in this jade bottle. They were all refined from the same furnace. It seems that the glittering jewel 3 demons are quite ambitious. Chu Fengmian looked at the divine elephant dark strength elixir in the jade bottle and smiled. Chu Fengmian had already guessed the purpose of the glittering jewel 3 demons to refine the divine elephant dark strength elixir. They wanted to condense an immortal real body. As long as they condensed an immortal real body in the half-step celestial realm, they would gain a lot of benefits after passing the celestial tribulation and ascending to immortality. Chu Fengmian knew that both young Emperor and Heavenly King Desolation had been suppressing their cultivation for the same reason. Instead of trying to break through, they wanted to form their deathless true bodies. It seemed that the glittering Jewel 3 demons had the same plan. Speaking of which, the glittering Jewel 3 demons' chances of success were higher than young Emperor and Heavenly King Huang's. They had been accumulating strength and cultivating their physique. With these divine elephant dark strength elixirs, they really had a chance of condensing an immortal real body. Unfortunately, 2 of the glittering Jewel 3 demons had died at the hands of Hai Chang'e. The last one, glittering Jewel Jie, had also died at the hands of Chu Fengmian. The entire glittering Jewel dynasty had been wiped out by Chu Fengmian. This bottle of divine elephant dark strength elixir now belonged to Chu Fengmian. These divine elephant profound strength pills can add a bit more strength to my physical body. Although Chu Fengmian had already condensed an immortal real body, the divine elephant dark strength elixir contained a little bit of divine elephant power. It could strengthen Chu Fengmian's immortal real body. It could make Chu Fengmian's body more tenacious and stronger. With the divine elephant dark strength elixir in his hands, Chu Fengmian did not hold back. He took out a divine elephant dark strength elixir and swallowed it. End of chapter. Chapter 1907. What a powerful elixir! Chu Fengmian swallowed the divine elephant dark strength elixir and immediately activated the sky-devouring secret technique. Chu Fengmian's body transformed into a huge furnace and began to frantically refine the medicinal power of the divine elephant dark strength pill. This was the first time Chu Fengmian swallowed an ancient saint elixir. The powerful elixir instantly filled every corner of Chu Fengmian's body. 129,600 blood and flesh crystals. No, they should be called immortal crystals now. These crystals no longer had the slightest trace of flesh and blood. Instead, they had a jade green color. The blood and flesh crystals had turned into true immortal crystals. The divine elephant dark strength elixir's elixir dispersed into the 129,600 immortal crystals and was madly absorbed by them. Chu Fengmian had condensed an immortal true body, but it was still very weak and needed to continuously absorb energy to become stronger. The divine elephant dark strength elixir's elixir dispersed into the 129,600 immortal crystals and was madly devoured. In the blink of an eye, the medicinal power of the divine elephant mysterious energy pill was completely refined. Chu Fengmian could feel that the power of the 129,600 immortal crystals had become more tyrannical. Although the divine elephant mysterious energy pill wasn't enough to make the 129,600 immortal crystals evolve again, it was enough to make the 129,600 immortal crystals even more resilient. Continue to devour. After confirming that the divine elephant dark strength elixir was effective even for an immortal true body, Chu Fengmian did not hesitate and took out another divine elephant dark strength elixir and swallowed it into his body. The divine elephant dark strength elixir's elixir was extremely powerful. Chu Fengmian did not dare to swallow too many at once, so he swallowed them one by one. Once the divine elephant dark strength elixir fell into Chu Fengmian's body, it was shattered by the impact of spiritual energy and turned into pure elixir, merging into the 129,600 immortal crystals. Chu Fengmian swallowed 5 divine elephant dark strength elixirs in a row before stopping. It was not that Chu Fengmian's immortal true body could not bear the elixir's elixir, but that the elixir's effect had disappeared. In this world, once one consumed too many pills, their effects would gradually weaken. Some ordinary medicinal pills were still fine, but the more heaven-defying the medicinal pill was, the faster its effects would weaken. After Chu Fengmian swallowed the divine elephant profound strength pill, its medicinal effects had clearly weakened. If Chu Fengmian continued to swallow this divine elephant profound strength pill, he would be able to swallow less than 10% of the medicinal power contained within. As for the remaining 90% of the medicinal strength, it would be ineffective. It wasn't easy for Chu Fengmian to obtain this divine elephant profound energy core. Apart from this chance encounter, Chu Fengmian didn't have any other chances to obtain it. The glittering jewel 3 demons had probably spent hundreds or even thousands of years accumulating the materials needed to refine the divine elephant profound energy pill. It was such a pity to waste this divine elephant profound energy pill. Moreover, even if Chu Fengmian didn't devour it, it would still be a huge fortune for him to keep. To any half-step celestial tier elite, or even celestial tier elite, this divine elephant profound energy core was a rare treasure, enough to make them go crazy. After all, even a heaven tier elite might not necessarily have condensed an immortal true body, but they also yearned for this divine elephant profound energy core. Chu Fengmian kept the remaining 8 divine elephant profound energy cores in his possession. In the future, he could use them to exchange for some things that couldn't be bought with spirit stones. Chu Fengmian put the remaining 8 divine elephant profound energy cores into the empty ring and sealed it with a seal to prevent the medicinal strength within from disappearing. Then, Chu Fengmian looked at the wooden shelf again. Almost all the treasures on the wooden shelf were enough to make a half-step celestial being go crazy. However, for Chu Fengmian, they didn't have much of an effect, and were far from comparable to the divine elephant profound energy core. This divine elephant profound energy core should be the most precious treasure in the glittering jewel dynasty's treasury. Chu Fengmian's gaze swept over the rest of the treasures on the wooden shelf and stored them into his spatial ring. When he was putting away a jade box, Chu Fengmian suddenly felt a surge of immortal power. He opened the jade box and saw 40 to 50 immortal stones inside. It seemed that these immortal stones were accumulated by the glittering jewel 3 devils. 40 to 50 immortal stones was not a small number. Chu Fengmian also put away all of these immortal stones before taking a look at the treasury again. The 9th floor of the treasury had been emptied by Chu Fengmian. There was almost nothing left. What is this? Right when Chu Fengmian was about to leave, his spiritual intent suddenly found an ancient book hidden under the wooden shelf. This ancient book didn't emit any spirit energy, so Chu Fengmian didn't notice it at first. He took a closer look and finally found it. Alchemy Kingdom's Grand Ceremony? Chu Fengmian's expression suddenly changed after seeing the words on the ancient book. Then, he exclaimed with joy, "It's actually the Alchemy Kingdom's alchemy scripture?" The Alchemy Kingdom was once an extremely mysterious power in the 9 realms. It had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. There were very few records about it in the 9 realms. However, all of the records were the same. The alchemy arts of the Alchemy Kingdom were peerless in this world. In terms of alchemy mastery, even the later sects that focused on alchemy couldn't compare to the Alchemy Kingdom. The Alchemy Kingdom's grand ceremony was at its peak. It gathered all of the alchemy masters in the world to write a scripture that recorded all of the pill refinement methods in this world. Rumor has it that the Alchemy King Valley, one of the 7 great sects of the 9 realms, obtained a small portion of the Alchemy Kingdom's grand ceremony. From then on, they rose to become one of the 7 great sects of the 9 realms. Chu Fengmian didn't expect for the Alchemy Kingdom's grand ceremony to be found in the treasury of the Glittering Dynasty. However, this book shouldn't be the complete version. Rumor has it that there were dozens of grand ceremonies, and this should only be one of them. The Alchemy King Valley should have only obtained one of them, but even just one of them was extremely frightening. Chu Fengmian could use this to establish a sect. With this foundation, he would be able to establish a power not inferior to the alchemy King Valley. Many sacred pills from the ancient era didn't disappear in the present era because of the disappearance of the sacred medicines. Instead, it was the disappearance of the ancient pill formulas. Without the pill formulas, one had to fumble around in order to refine them. This was practically a fantasy. Refining a sacred pill required at least 5 or 6 main ingredients and more than 10 auxiliary ingredients. Moreover, the number and age of the ingredients were extremely high. Without the pill formulas, many sacred pills from the ancient era disappeared. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 1908. For example, the pill formula for the Divine Elephant Dark Strength pill had already been lost in the 9 regions. Because of this pill had already gone extinct. It was no wonder why the glittering Jewel 3 devils were able to refine it. It turned out that they had an alchemy manual in their possession. Chu Fengmian opened the manual and glanced through it. There were thousands of pill recipes recorded within. Divine Elephant Mysterious Pill, Azure Falling Firmament Pill, Soaring Immortal Nirvana Pill. Chu Fengmian was incomparably shocked as he looked at the many elixir prescriptions. Many elixir prescriptions that had been lost for hundreds of thousands of years were now recorded in the medicine encyclopedia. Especially the Flying Immortal Nirvana elixir. According to legend, the Flying Immortal Nirvana elixir was known as the #1 sacred elixir in ancient times. A single Flying Immortal Nirvana elixir was enough to help a half-step celestial realm expert directly step into the celestial realm. What was even more heaven-defying was that after using this pill, even the power of the celestial tribulation would be weakened. One Soaring Immortal Nirvana pill was enough to create a celestial realm expert. Because of this, not only did the alchemy kingdom reach the apex in terms of alchemy, but they also had many experts under them. Many celestial realm, profound heaven, and heavenly realm experts joined the alchemy kingdom in order to obtain sacred medicines and immortal pills. The effects of the Soaring Immortal Nirvana pill could be described as heaven-defying. However, Chu Fengmian could only sigh after looking at the recipe. Refining the Flying Immortal Nirvana elixir required a total of 99 types of ancient sacred herbs. In the current era, it was hard to say if there were even 99 sacred medicines of the ancient level in this world. Only the powerful alchemy kingdom could refine the Soaring Immortal Nirvana pill. Almost all of the pills passed down in the future were found in the ruins of the alchemy kingdom. Even if Chu Fengmian knew of this pill recipe, he still couldn't refine it. Chu Fengmian only took a few glances at the Flying Immortal Nirvana pill's pill formula before shifting his gaze to the other pill formulas. Many pills were recorded in this alchemy manual, and some of them were still preserved in the future. However, Chu Fengmian noticed that there were some subtle differences between the pill formulas and the ones that had been passed down. I wonder if there will be any changes in the effects of the pills refined using the recipe? Chu Fengmian glanced at them. Suddenly, his mind flickered, and several types of sacred herbs appeared in his palm. Chu Fengmian waved his other hand, and a stream of pure yang heavenly flame flew out. Under Chu Fengmian's control, this flame immediately turned into an alchemy cauldron. Chu Fengmian then placed the sacred medicines into the cauldron according to the pill recipe in the kingdom's grand hall. What Chu Fengmian wanted to concoct was the 6 Sages' Great Pill. It was a type of sacred pill that was concocted using 6 types of sacred herbs. This kind of 6 Saint Great Pill was useful for warriors of Emperor Gu's realm to break through to the next realm. It was a relatively common pill. These 6 sacred herbs weren't hard to find. Chu Fengmian just happened to have some ready-made ones, so he used them to refine pills. In a few breaths of time, the sacred herbs that were thrown into the cauldron were melted by the pure yang skyfire and turned into lumps of medicinal liquid. Chu Fengmian took advantage of this opportunity and poured his spirit energy into the cauldron. The medicinal liquid began to condense and gradually took the shape of a pill. A pure medicinal fragrance wafted out from the alchemy cannon. Chu Fengmian's mind moved and the cauldron immediately opened. 7 6 Saint Great Pills flew out. The refining method of the 6 Saints Great Pill was not complicated. To Chu Fengmian, it was easy to refine. The 6 Saints Great Pill that Chu Fengmian refined was almost no different from the ones that could be sold outside. However, one of the 6 sacred medicines recorded in the medicine encyclopedia was slightly different from the one recorded in the pill formula that had been passed down. After Chu Fengmian collected the 6 Saint Great Pill, he took out another 6 Saint Herbs. However, this time, Chu Fengmian concocted them according to the pill recipe recorded in the medicine encyclopedia. These 6 sacred medicines were thrown into the cauldron. Under the heat of the pure yang heavenly flame, they turned into medicinal liquid with extremely pure spirit energy and condensed into pills in just a few breaths of time. Disperse. The moment the pills were condensed, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and the cauldron disappeared. Only the 7 pills were left in the air. However, Chu Fengmian only took a glance and was able to tell the difference between these 6 saints' great pellets and the ones he had just refined. Just the medicinal efficacy alone was enough to distinguish the difference. According to the recipe recorded in the alchemy canon, the pills refined from the alchemy canon were at least 30% more potent than the ones passed down today. They could be said to be perfect-grade sacred pills. A perfect sacred pill of this level could only be chanced upon and not sought. Normally, it would only appear once in a blue moon. However, if one were to follow the recipe recorded in the Alchemy Kingdom's grand ceremony, one would be able to refine a sacred pill of this level. However, if one were to follow the recipe recorded in the alchemy canon, Chu Fengmian could easily refine them. It looks like the recipe for the 6 Saints pill was altered when it was passed down. Chu Fengmian sighed after seeing this. According to the recipe recorded in the alchemy canon, the pills refined from the alchemy canon should be the real ones. Many of the recipes passed down in the future were incomplete due to various reasons. Although they were later supplemented by others, the true medicinal efficacy couldn't compare to the original version. Outside of the 6 Saints pill, there were many other recipes with similar problems. However, Chu Fengmian didn't intend to try them all. I wonder if there are any pills that can help me in the alchemy canon? Chu Fengmian flipped open the alchemy canon and began to search for something. In the primordial era, there were many pills that could help Emperor Gu reach the celestial realm or even a half-step celestial realm. However, in the current era, many of these pills' recipes were missing and couldn't be refined. There were also pills like the Nirvana Flying Immortal Pill. Although their effects were heaven-defying, there was almost no chance to refine them now. After flipping through the pages, Chu Fengmian found several pills that could help him break through. These were the sacred medicines needed for these pills, but they were almost impossible to find in the present day. Chu Fengmian wasn't discouraged and continued to read. There were more than 1,000 sacred pills recorded in the alchemy canon, so there was definitely a chance to find them. This is it. End of chapter. Chapter 1909. Chu Fengmian almost flipped through the records of the Alchemy Kingdom's grand ceremony before finally finding a suitable pill. Minor Flying Immortal Pill. The name of this pill was very similar to the Flying Immortal Nirvana Pill. There was indeed a connection between the two. The Flying Immortal Nirvana Pill had heaven-defying effects, but very few people were able to gather all the materials to refine it, even during the Alchemy Kingdom's era. 99 sacred medicines, all of which were of the ancient level. Not a single one could be missing. Very few people were able to accomplish such a harsh requirement. Because of this, several alchemy grandmasters worked together to create a new type of sacred pill, the Minor Flying Immortal Pill. Its effect was similar to the Flying Immortal Nirvana Pill. Both were able to help people break through to the next realm. It was quite effective for half-step celestial realm cultivators. However, its effect was quite lacking compared to the Flying Immortal Nirvana Pill. It was only 1/10 of the pill's effect. However, in comparison, the materials required to refine the small flying immortal pill were much lesser than the flying immortal nirvana pill. It only required 9 types of ancient grade sacred herbs. Moreover, these 9 types of ancient sacred herbs could be said to be a few of the more common ancient sacred herbs. In Chu Fengmian's memories, there was still a chance to buy these medicines in the current era. It was impossible for Chu Fengmian to refine a cauldron of flying immortal nirvana pills, but this minor flying immortal pill was a possibility. Chu Fengmian already had 4 of the 9 sacred medicines. He only needed to buy 5 more to be able to refine a cauldron of minor flying immortal pills. The minor flying immortal pill was effective for half-step celestial realm cultivators. Chu Fengmian was only trying to break through to the half-step celestial realm, so it should be effective as well. Chu Fengmian calculated that this small flying immortal pill was at least equivalent to 10 immortal stones in effect. Since he couldn't find immortal stones in a short time, he could try to refine a few minor flying immortal pills. Wait until I return to South Suppression City. I'll go take a look at the Lunar Ocean Merchant Association. Chu Fengmian's figure flickered as he flew out of the ruined Glitter Jewel Dynasty and entered the chaotic ocean. He was ready to leave. He had already completed the mission. Now, as long as he returned, he could go to the mission hall to receive the mission reward. However, just as Chu Fengmian was about to leave the chaotic ocean, he suddenly stopped. His gaze turned in a certain direction, a direction that was even deeper into the chaotic ocean. Genesis Chi? This was Genesis Chi. Why would there be primeval Chi in this chaotic ocean? Chu Fengmian looked at the depths of the chaotic ocean and revealed a look of shock. Primordial energy was the power of pre-heaven god beasts, and represented the essence of heaven and earth. Chu Fengmian had actually sensed it in the chaotic sea. Although it was only a wisp of aura that floated out from the depths of the chaotic ocean, Chu Fengmian still sensed it. Chu Fengmian's body had been fused with the primordial Qi, and he had become a mutated species of heaven and earth. He was extremely sensitive to primordial Qi, and instantly realized that the primordial Qi was coming from the depths of the chaotic ocean. Let's go take a look. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. After thinking for a while, he turned into a ray of light and flew towards the depths of the chaotic ocean. Primordial Qi, the essence of heaven and earth. Chu Fengmian's current strength was boundless because he had mastered 2 kinds of essence of heaven and earth. The more essence of these 2 kinds of essence of heaven and earth, the more terrifying Chu Fengmian's strength would become. If Chu Fengmian could master another kind of essence of heaven and earth, even if he did not break through to the next realm, he would still be Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations. He was confident that he could fight against a true sky realm expert. The increase in his battle strength would be 10 times greater. Such benefits were worth Chu Fengmian taking the risk to explore the chaotic ocean. The trench where the glittering Jewel Dynasty was located was only the edge of the chaotic ocean. There were countless dangers hidden in the depths of the chaotic ocean. Even the glittering Jewel 3 demons did not dare to step in rashly. Chu Fengmian's ray of light flew towards the depths of the chaotic ocean. He was extremely careful, and concealed his aura along the way. Chu Fengmian did not attack any sea beasts that he encountered, and instead, he avoided them. Chu Fengmian was also worried that he would attract some creatures if he attacked them. Chu Fengmian went deeper into the chaotic ocean, following the direction of the primordial Qi. The demonic will in the seawater also increased. Chu Fengmian was now in the seawater, which was equivalent to being in a kind of demonic will. He was being eroded by the demonic will at every moment. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian's Dao heart was strong. It was almost impossible for ordinary demonic will to affect Chu Fengmian. The 1,000 Thoughts Buddhist beads on Chu Fengmian's wrist also emitted a Buddhist light, dispelling the demonic will around Chu Fengmian. The Buddhist light shrouded Chu Fengmian's back, and the demonic will could not get close to him. Chu Fengmian was not a Buddhist martial artist, so he could not use the power of the 1,000 Thoughts Buddhist bead. However, He could use the 1,000 thoughts Buddhist beads to resist the demonic will. It should be up ahead. Chu Fengmian felt that he had already reached the center of the chaotic ocean. Everything before him was pitch black. At this point, Chu Fengmian couldn't even see any sea beasts. All the sea beasts seemed to be extremely afraid of this place. They did not dare to come close, as they did not know what was hidden here. Rumble! Just as Chu Fengmian was carefully moving forward, he suddenly felt that he was suddenly in an incomparably huge whirlpool. A tyrannical suction force enveloped Chu Fengmian's body, as if it wanted to pull him into the depths of the chaotic ocean. The whirlpool had appeared out of nowhere. By the time Chu Fengmian realized it, he had already been sucked into the whirlpool. This tyrannical suction force was so strong that even a 9 tribulations Emperor Gu could not resist it. He would be torn to shreds. Is this the eye of the chaotic ocean? Chu Fengmian released a burst of spiritual power to resist the suction force of the whirlpool. At the same time, he looked at the center of the whirlpool. The center of the whirlpool was a huge eye of the sea with a diameter of 100 meters. It was this eye of the sea that was transmitting a steady stream of suction force to form such a whirlpool. All the martial artists and fey immortals that entered the whirlpool would be pulled into the eye of the sea by the whirlpool and mercilessly suppressed under the eye of the sea. It was no wonder that there were no sea beasts here. There was actually such an eye of the sea. End of chapter. Chapter 1910. The sea eye of the chaotic ocean was famous in the Songhai star zone. Many warriors and demon gods who had entered the chaotic ocean had died under the sea eye. Once one was pulled into the eye of the sea by the whirlpool, one would be suppressed under the eye of the sea forever. It was almost impossible to escape. Hai Shirsi also remembered the horror of the sea eye in his memory. Once a 9 tribulation ancient emperor or even a half-step celestial being expert was pulled into the eye of the sea, there was only death awaiting them. The chaotic ocean had been enveloped and eroded by the demonic will. Not only the creatures in the chaotic ocean, but the entire chaotic ocean had undergone various changes under the influence of the demonic will. The sea eye was one of the changes in the chaotic ocean. Sometimes, there were even several sea eyes hidden in a whirlpool. Once a warrior fell into it, he would be pulled in by the attraction force of several sea eyes. Such sea eyes were extremely dangerous to a half-step celestial realm expert. Therefore, even a half-step celestial realm expert would not be willing to step into the chaotic ocean. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian only encountered one sea eye in the whirlpool this time. After feeling the pulling force, Chu Fengmian immediately urged his spiritual power to resist the devouring force of the sea eye. Break! Chu Fengmian stabilized his body and looked at the bottom of the whirlpool. The sea eye was 100 meters in diameter. Suddenly, he punched out. In the punch, the battle dragon's strength burst out and the dragon roared. Boom! Chu Fengmian's punch landed on the sea eye. Countless cracks appeared in the center of the sea eye and then it shattered. Bang! The sea eye shattered and lost its pulling force. The whirlpool also disappeared. Chu Fengmian glanced at it and turned into a ray of light, flying to the deepest part of the chaotic ocean. However, this was only the first sea eye that Chu Fengmian encountered. Following that, he encountered several more sea eyes in succession. Chu Fengmian burst out the battle dragon's strength. The pulling force of the sea eyes could not affect Chu Fengmian's body at all. With one punch, he broke all of the sea eyes. In just 5 minutes, Chu Fengmian had broken more than a dozen sea eyes. This made Chu Fengmian feel that something was wrong. In Hai Shirsi's memory, the sea eyes of the chaotic ocean were almost all independent existences, and it was very difficult to encounter them one after another. However, in just 5 minutes, Chu Fengmian encountered more than 10 sea eyes. Chu Fengmian used his spiritual sense to explore the area and found that there were hundreds of such sea eyes in the nearby sea area. What is this place? Why is there a place with so many sea eyes in the chaotic ocean? Chu Fengmian was shocked by the results of his investigation. Hai Shirsi's memories didn't even know that there was such a place in the chaotic ocean. Hai Shirsi was a core disciple of the Sea Sword sect. The Sea Sword sect had a lot of information about the chaotic ocean. However, even the Sea Sword sect did not know that there was such a place in the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian chased after this primordial qi and actually came to an unfamiliar place that no one had ever set foot in before. However, Chu Fengmian noticed that the primeval qi was coming from the center of the countless sea eyes. Chu Fengmian took a look and didn't hesitate. He turned into a ray of light and went deeper. He also wanted to see what exactly had emitted this wisp of alpha origin qi. If it was something similar to the primogenitor Tianlong's claw or the heaven-devouring beast's heart, Chu Fengmian could seize it and refine it, fusing it into his body to increase his strength. After breaking through countless sea eyes, Chu Fengmian finally entered the center of the sea area. Rumble! The moment Chu Fengmian arrived, the entire sea area suddenly shook. Chu Fengmian suddenly felt a sense of danger. He didn't feel this kind of danger even when he was facing a celestial realm expert. It was a feeling that made Chu Fengmian shudder. Without any hesitation, Chu Fengmian turned into a ray of light and retreated. However, at this moment, a wave came crashing towards Chu Fengmian. Primogenitor's sixth move. Chu Fengmian didn't hesitate. He pushed the power of the battle dragon to the extreme and waved his hand. It turned into a battle dragon claw and clashed with the wave. Bang! The moment the claw that contained the sixth move of the primogenitor clashed with the wave, Chu Fengmian felt that he couldn't resist it. The battle dragon claw that he had transformed into was forcibly shattered. The power of the waves was actually able to easily shatter the battle dragon's claw. Chu Fengmian's sixth move of the primogenitor was enough to threaten a celestial realm expert. However, it wasn't a match for such a small wave. Immortal true body. I am immortal. Sword out. Boom. The moment the battle dragon claw was shattered, Chu Fengmian didn't dare to hold back. He knew how terrifying the power of the sea was. Chu Fengmian pushed his immortal true body to the extreme. The power of the two swords collided with the wave. Bang! Chu Fengmian's body was sent flying the moment it came into contact with the wave. However, the power of the wave was finally blocked and shattered. However, Chu Fengmian didn't heave a sigh of relief. The sense of danger hadn't disappeared yet. His face was extremely pale. What in the world is making these waves? Celestial realm. This is definitely the power of a celestial realm expert. It's much stronger than the Mad Dragon Emperor. I can't take a single blow from it. Chu Fengmian was horrified. Without any hesitation, he pushed his escape light to the extreme and hurriedly escaped. However, Chu Fengmian still used his spiritual consciousness to look behind him. Suddenly, he saw an incomparably huge figure in the sea. The figure was tens of thousands of feet long. It was a colossus in the sea and had just woken up from its slumber in the middle of a huge eye of the sea. Black whale? No, it's a Yuan whale. It's the emperor of the ancient Yuan whale clan. How could such a thing be hidden in the chaotic ocean? Chu Fengmian was a little absent-minded when he saw the figure. It was as if he had seen a real innate divine beast, the black whale. However, Chu Fengmian soon recognized that it was a Yuan whale. The emperor of the ancient Yuan whale clan possessed the incomparably ancient bloodline of the black whale. The wisp of Genesis Qi was emitted from the Yuan whale emperor. The origin whale emperor was also the one who had unleashed the wave earlier. End of chapter. Chapter 1911. The ancient Yuan whale clan was not inferior to the ancient war dragon clan. The Yuan whale emperor was much stronger than an ordinary celestial realm expert. A casual attack from him could almost kill Chu Fengmian. It was no wonder that no sea beasts dared to approach this place. There was a monster sleeping under the eye of the sea. The origin whale clan was already extremely powerful. Moreover, the origin whale emperor's Xian whale bloodline was extremely pure. The strength of the Origin Whale Emperor was much stronger than that of a sky-human realm martial artist or a demon immortal. The Yuan Whale Emperor was sleeping in the eye of the sea. However, Chu Fengmian's sudden intrusion had awakened him and infuriated him. Rumble! The Origin Whale Emperor's massive body didn't move at all, but the surrounding sea was trembling. His enormous body chased after Chu Fengmian. Run! Chu Fengmian's expression changed. Primogenitor Tianlong's strength had reached its peak at this moment. Tianlong change. Chu Fengmian's escape light was pushed to the extreme. He tore the space apart and traversed 100 miles in an instant. After a few breaths, Chu Fengmian finally heaved a sigh of relief when he escaped from the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian sensed that the Yuan Whale Emperor had stopped chasing him after he left the chaotic ocean. It seemed like the Yuan Whale Emperor was unwilling to leave the chaotic ocean. Fortunately, the Yuan Whale Emperor cannot leave the chaotic ocean easily. Otherwise, I'm afraid that even the celestial realm ocean emperors in the vast sea star region would not be his match. During this exchange, Chu Fengmian deeply understood how terrifying the Origin Whale Emperor was. Chu Fengmian's escape light was almost overtaken by the Yuan Whale Emperor. Even though Chu Fengmian had pushed primogenitor Tianlong's strength to the extreme, his escape light was not as fast as the Yuan Whale Emperor. Fortunately, the Yuan Whale Emperor had stopped chasing after Chu Fengmian after he left the chaotic ocean. That was why Chu Fengmian was still alive. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian would have died in the Yuan Whale Emperor's hands. This chaotic ocean hides a shocking secret. Looks like I can't rashly step into it. Chu Fengmian left the chaotic ocean and flew in the direction of Jianwang City. There was still some lingering fear in his heart. However, he could vaguely sense that there was an even deeper secret hidden within the chaotic ocean. The reason why the Origin Whale Emperor didn't leave the chaotic ocean wasn't because he couldn't. Given the Origin Whale Emperor's strength, there was probably no place in the world that could stop him. It was just that the Origin Whale Emperor wasn't willing to chase after Chu Fengmian anymore. The Origin Whale Emperor was protecting something. That was why he was unwilling to leave the chaotic ocean to chase after Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian didn't dare to imagine what the Origin Whale Emperor of the Celestial Realm was guarding, but it was definitely a priceless treasure. Given my current strength, I won't even be able to keep myself alive in the hands of the Yuan Whale Emperor. I can't go there rashly. Chu Fengmian could sense that whatever the Origin Whale Emperor was guarding had a huge attraction to him. Although he wasn't sure, he was still able to sense it. Although he wasn't sure, Chu Fengmian sensed the primordial qi in the depths of the massive eye of the sea. The primordial qi didn't come from the Origin Whale Emperor. It was hidden in the depths of the massive eye of the sea. The thing hidden in the depths of the massive eye of the sea should be what the Origin Whale Emperor was guarding. However, given Chu Fengmian's current strength, only death awaited him if he provoked the Origin Whale Emperor. Chu Fengmian wouldn't dare to go there again in the short term. However, when Chu Fengmian's cultivation base improved and he stepped into the half-step celestial realm, he should be able to protect himself against the Origin Whale Emperor. At that time, he would be able to explore the depths of the massive eye of the sea and find out what exactly was hidden. Let's go. Chu Fengmian conjured a beam of light and flew towards Jianwang City. The Origin Whale Emperor had been awakened because of Chu Fengmian's intrusion. The tranquility of the chaotic ocean had been disrupted. Why did the Origin Whale Emperor suddenly awaken? Did someone intrude? Who would be so bold as to provoke the Origin Whale Emperor? Even the Linjian Ocean Emperor, the Donglin Ocean Emperor, and that old antique, the Worship Ocean Emperor, wouldn't dare to provoke the Origin Whale Emperor. It must be that reckless brat who accidentally stepped into the eye of the sea. He must have been eaten by the Origin Whale Emperor. The Origin Whale Emperor finally fell into a deep slumber. We were just looking for an opportunity to explore the depths of the eye of the sea, but that brat has ruined everything. It doesn't matter. The Origin Whale Emperor is injured and slowly eroded by the demonic will. He's getting weaker and weaker. If we continue waiting, it won't be long before we can kill the Origin Whale Emperor. This time, I've even invited a few experts from Jianwang Heaven to join us. Experts from Jianwang Heaven? Isn't that asking a tiger for its skin? Don't worry. We've been operating the chaotic ocean for so many years. Why should we be afraid of a few outsiders? If they dare to have any other thoughts, we'll kill them. The thoughts hidden in the chaotic ocean conversed with each other and gradually dispersed. On the other hand, Chu Fengmian didn't stop after leaving the chaotic ocean. It took him 5 days to return to Jianwang City and go straight to the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. This time, when Chu Fengmian arrived at the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild, the Oblivion Sea King took the initiative to appear and receive Chu Fengmian. 14th Young Master, may I know what you need from the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild this time? If you need immortal stones, we haven't accumulated any during this time. The Oblivion Sea King took Chu Fengmian to a space on the second floor when he saw Chu Fengmian's arrival. He thought that Chu Fengmian was here for the immortal stones. It's fine if you don't have any immortal stones. Apart from immortal stones, I also need some other things. If the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild receives any immortal stones in the future, you can contact me immediately. I'll buy them all, Chu Fengmian said directly. The reason he came to the Moon Ocean Commerce this time was to buy some materials to refine the small flying immortal Dan. Compared to using immortal stones to break through, the minor flying immortal pill was better. Before, Chu Fengmian didn't have the recipe for the minor flying immortal pill, so it was impossible for him to refine it. Now that he had the Alchemy Kingdom Grand Ceremony, he could use it to refine the pill. Chu Fengmian pondered for a moment before speaking again. Also, before that, I need to sell a batch of items. Chu Fengmian naturally wanted to sell the loot from the glittering Jewel Dynasty's treasury. End of chapter.